My husband Nathan and I had been trying for a baby for years, each failed attempt driving a deeper wedge between us. Our once joyful conversations had turned into a suffocating silence. That evening, as I prepared dinner, Nathan walked in, his face etched with resolve. He sat down and said words that would forever echo in my heart. "Emily, I can't do this anymore. I've met someone else, and she's pregnant with my child." I felt my knees weaken. "But Nathan, what about us? All our plans?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "There's no us anymore, Em. I need a real family. You just can't give me that," he replied, his voice as cold as the chill seeping through the window. His words cut through me. I was not just losing my husband, but also my dream of being a mother. The nights that followed were sleepless, filled with tears and unanswered questions. I was haunted by his parting words, a cruel reminder of my supposed inadequacy. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Nathan's words, sharp as knives, were relentless. "I should have known better than to waste my years on a barren woman," he spat out during one of our meetings. Julie, his pregnant mistress, stood smirking beside him. I signed the papers, each stroke of the pen feeling like an end to a chapter I had so dearly held on to. I left my job at the library, the place where Nathan and I had first met, and moved back to my parents' house. The walls of my old bedroom, once a canvas of teenage dreams, now felt like the boundaries of my failure. The loneliness was suffocating, and the societal whispers of being childless added to my agony. But amidst this despair, a small ray of hope emerged. A routine visit to the doctor revealed a truth that would change everything. I wasn't the one with fertility issues. It had always been Nathan. This revelation brought a bittersweet sense of liberation. I wasn't the flawed one in our marriage. Armed with this truth, I began to see a path forward. It was time to rebuild, to rediscover who I was beyond Nathan's shadow. In the quietness of Maplewood, I started piecing back my life. It was a slow, often painful journey, but with each passing day, I found strength in my newfound independence. I was determined to rise from the ashes of my broken marriage, stronger and more resilient than ever. Living back in my childhood home in Maplewood felt like stepping into a time capsule, yet everything was tinted with the gray hues of my recent past. My parents, though supportive, often tiptoed around me, their eyes reflecting a mix of concern and unspoken questions. I took a job at a local cafe, a far cry from the library where every shelf whispered memories of Nathan. One crisp morning, as I served coffee to a regular customer, I realized how much I had changed. Gone was the woman who dreamt of cradling her own child, replaced by someone hardened by betrayal. Yet in that hardness, there was an emerging sense of resilience. My transformation wasn't just emotional. A few months after the divorce, I discovered something that turned my world upside down again. But this time in a different way. It turned out I wasn't infertile. The problem had always been with Nathan. The revelation was like a storm clearing the skies. All those years of self-blame, the guilt that I carried, dissolved. I was not the broken one. With this newfound clarity, a spark of anger ignited within me. Nathan had not only left me for someone else, but had also made me believe I was the reason we couldn't have a child. Fueled by this anger, I began to plot my revenge. It was not something dark or sinister, but a desire to confront Nathan and Julie with the truth, to see the realization dawn in their eyes that the fault had never been mine. The opportunity came unexpectedly. I learned through old mutual friends that Nathan and Julie, now his wife, were organizing a charity event at a local community center. It would be a public setting, a perfect stage for my unspoken play. I arrived at the event dressed inconspicuously, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I spotted them across the room, Nathan looking dapper in his suit and Julie, radiant, holding their daughter, Lily. Taking a deep breath, I walked up to them, my steps measured and firm. "Hello, Nathan, Julie," I said, my voice steady. Their expressions shifted from surprise to disdain. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Nathan asked, a sneer forming on his lips. I looked straight into his eyes, the eyes that once promised forever. "I came to congratulate you, Nathan, on your family, but there's something you should know." "And what's that?" Julie chimed in, her voice laced with sarcasm. "The child we never had, Nathan, it wasn't because of me. I'm not the infertile one," I said, the words tasting like freedom. The color drained from Nathan's face, his confident posture faltering. Julie's eyes widened in shock, her grip on Lily tightening. "I thought you should know the truth. Goodbye, Nathan." "Goodbye, Julie," I said, turning away, leaving them in a sea of unspoken words and dawning realizations. As I walked away, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. It wasn't a dramatic showdown or a vindictive scheme, but in that moment I reclaimed my dignity and truth. I walked out of that community center not as a victim, but as a survivor, ready to write the next chapter of my life on my own terms. Months had passed since my encounter with Nathan and Julie at the charity event. That moment, liberating as it was, had stirred something in me. A need for a closure I hadn't realized I craved. Life in Maplewood carried on, my days at the cafe filled with the familiar hum of coffee machines and casual chatter, but my thoughts often drifted to that day. Then came the unexpected invitation to my niece's birthday party at the city aquarium. The aquarium, a place of wonder and serenity, soon became the stage for a confrontation I never anticipated. As I meandered through the crowds, admiring the dance of colorful fish behind glass walls, a familiar, contemptuous voice pierced through the tranquility. Well, if it isn't Emily, still wandering alone in life?" I turned to see Nathan, Julie, and a young girl, presumably their daughter, standing a few feet away. My heart raced, but this time not from fear or surprise, but from a sense of indignation. "What brings you here, Nathan?" I asked, my voice calm yet edged with defiance. "We're here for Lily's school project. Unlike some, we're a proper family," Nathan sneered, his eyes scanning my solitary figure with disdain. Julie chimed in, her voice dripping with false pity. "It must be hard, seeing what you could never have." Their words, meant to wound, only fueled my resolve. "I'm here for my niece's birthday, and for your information, I can have children. The issue was never with me." The smugness on Nathan's face faltered, replaced by an unmistakable flash of surprise. Julie's expression twisted, a mix of confusion and anger. "It's sad, really, how you cling to these lies to feel better about your lonely existence," Nathan retorted, attempting to regain his composure. Before I could reply, a small voice piped up from behind me. "Aunt Emily, who are these people?" I turned to see my niece, Anna, looking up at me with curious eyes. Her innocent interruption was like a breath of fresh air, dissipating the tension. "These are just some old acquaintances, sweetie," I replied, taking her hand. "Let's go see the dolphins, shall we?" As we walked away, I heard Julie's hushed, venomous voice. Can't even admit her own failures. Pathetic. Their words no longer had the power they once did. I had moved beyond their reach, their insults mere echoes of a past I had overcome. My focus was on the present, on the joy in Anna's eyes as we watched the graceful dolphins. That day at the aquarium, amidst the beauty of marine life, I realized that my worth wasn't defined by Nathan's perceptions or society's expectations. I was more than a chapter in someone else's story. I was the author of my own. In the weeks following the aquarium incident, I found myself reflecting on my encounters with Nathan and Julie. Their attempts to belittle me had lost their sting, but a desire for a more definitive closure lingered. I wanted them to see me not just as someone who had moved on, but as someone who had triumphed over the adversities they had thrown at me. The perfect opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. News broke out that Nathan's company was facing financial troubles. This, coupled with rumors of strife in his marriage, painted a picture of a life far from perfect. It was then I decided to attend the high school reunion, knowing Nathan and Julie would be there. It was time they saw the new me, not just heard about it. Dressed in a simple yet elegant dress, I entered the reunion with a confidence I never knew I had. The room buzzed with the chatter of old classmates, but it fell silent as Nathan and Julie entered. He looked older, the lines of stress evident on his face, while Julie clung to his arm, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I mingled, catching up with old friends, feeling their surprised glances as they took in my transformation. Then, as I had anticipated, I found myself face to face with Nathan and Julie. "Emily, you actually came. Thought you'd be too busy with your—" "What do you do now?" Nathan sneered, his words laced with condescension. "I manage a cafe in Maplewood. It's fulfilling, more than you'd think," I replied, my voice steady. Julie laughed, a hollow sound. "A cafe manager? How quaint! We heard about your little scene at the aquarium, still trying to convince the world about your fertility?" Their words, meant to sting, fell flat. "Actually, I'm here to enjoy the reunion, not to discuss my personal life. But since you brought it up, yes, I can have children. The issue was never with me, and I'm content with my life, which is more than I can say for some." The look of shock on their faces was gratifying, but I didn't linger to savor it. I excused myself, leaving them standing amidst a crowd that had subtly turned its attention to our exchange. Later that evening, as the reunion was winding down, Nathan approached me, a hint of desperation in his eyes. "Emily, about what you said earlier." "I meant every word, Nathan. I've moved on. I suggest you do the same," I said, cutting him off. He looked at me, a mix of anger and something that resembled regret, before turning away. Julie watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. As I left the reunion, I felt a sense of finality. I had faced Nathan and Julie not as the woman they thought they had broken, but as someone who had risen above it all. My past with Nathan was now just that, the past. I was ready to embrace whatever the future held, on my terms. The months following the high school reunion were a period of profound personal growth for me. I had faced Nathan and Julie not once but twice, and each time I had emerged stronger. My cafe in Maplewood had become a haven, a place where I could pour my energy and creativity. But fate, it seemed, wasn't quite done with our intertwined stories. One afternoon, as I was arranging pastries in the display case, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Hesitantly, I answered, and was met with a voice I hadn't expected to hear again, Nathan's. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. "Why are you calling me, Nathan?" "I thought we made it clear at the reunion that we've moved on," I replied, my guard instantly up. "It's about Julie. She's left me, took Lily with her, and the company's gone under. I'm ruined," he confessed, his voice breaking. A part of me felt a twinge of pity, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of ironic justice. "I'm sorry to hear that, Nathan, but why tell me?" "I thought maybe there's still something. We had good times, remember?" His voice was a mix of desperation and hope. "Nathan, those times are long gone. You made your choices. I've made mine," I said firmly. There was a pause, a silence filled with unspoken words. "I guess I deserved this," he finally said, a note of resignation in his voice. "You should focus on rebuilding your life, Nathan. Goodbye." I ended the call, a sense of final closure washing over me. The news of Nathan's downfall spread through our small town. Some expressed sympathy, but many remembered how he had treated me, how he had left for Julie when he thought the grass was greener. Karma, it seemed, had come full circle. In the weeks that followed, I poured my heart into the cafe, creating a space of warmth and welcome for anyone who walked through its doors. My past with Nathan became just a chapter in my life, a story of resilience and renewal. As I closed the cafe one evening, I took a moment to reflect. The journey had been long and often painful, but it had led me to a place of peace and self-acceptance. Nathan's choices had led him down his path, and I had forged my own. In the end, I realized that the best revenge was living well, finding happiness in my own achievements, and leaving the past where it belonged. I had emerged not just unbroken, but stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held.
I divorced my husband because he cheated on me 3 years ago with my younger sister. They sent me an invitation to their wedding. My mother said she would attend, and I felt betrayed by her too. Then she said, "I'll do something fun, you just wait and see." I had a plan to punish the two of them. My name is Emma. My husband and I worked in the same company, and I was his boss. He was a bit unreliable but sincere and friendly. I was responsible for training him and teaching him the job. At first, he was nervous about the new work, but over time, we grew close. "Yuma, are you free on our next day off?" he asked me. I was surprised when he asked me out on a date, but I was excited to see how confident he was outside of work. It made my heart skip a beat. After that, we often went out together. "Emma, will you be my girlfriend?" he asked. 6 months after we officially started dating, he could handle his work all by himself. He had become a valuable part of our company. I felt as happy as if it were my own success when other bosses praised him. He then got promoted and moved to a different department. That's when he proposed to me. "Emma, I want you to marry me." "Yes, I'd be happy to," I replied. My parents and younger sister Kate immediately liked Liam, and our wedding went smoothly. Kate, who was the same age as Liam, got along with him right away. You're so lucky to marry a kind man like Liam. It seems like people at work have high expectations for him, right? Kate said. She had just broken up with her boyfriend and was yearning for marriage, always telling me how jealous she was of me. After our wedding, I continued working and taking care of the household, supporting Liam both at work and in our personal lives. At least I thought I was supporting him. About a year after our marriage, he started coming home later and later, and we hardly ever had dinner together. Hey Liam, we haven't talked about work lately. Is everything okay? I asked. Nothing's wrong, he replied tersely. But you've been coming home late every day. If there's anything I can do to help. There isn't, he cut me off. He used to share everything with me, but recently he seemed annoyed whenever I brought up work. On his days off, he'd either sleep all day, claiming exhaustion, or head out to clear his mind. Feeling like we weren't spending enough quality time together, I made a suggestion to Liam. Hey Liam, how about we go to a spa together during the next holiday? My sister recommended a place to us, I suggested. A spa, huh? A spa is a place where we can relax and recharge our bodies and minds, especially from the stresses of work. Seeing Liam busy, I took the initiative to make a hotel reservation that included a spa. A week before our planned spa trip, I asked Liam, what time should we leave next week for the spa? Huh? Oh, is the spa trip next week? I forgot to mention I have a business trip scheduled for that weekend. What? But you've known of the spa trip for a while now. Well, it's work, so I can't really change it, can I? I see. Liam's department seemed busier than ever with frequent business trips. It seemed like I had no choice but to give up on the spa trip this time too. As usual, Liam left early in the morning for his business trip. If things had gone as planned, we would be on our way to the spa together by now, I thought sadly. While feeling down, I received a phone call. It was from the hotel where I had booked a reservation. Despite sending a cancellation email, they didn't receive it due to an error and called to confirm our arrival time. That's right, I thought. I might as well invite Kate. I called my parents' house. But Kate had been out since morning and wouldn't be back soon. So as a last resort, I decided to invite my mother to the spa. Compared to my sister, I had almost given up on the idea that my mother would be able to go on such short notice. But surprisingly, she agreed. Really? Is it okay to leave Dad alone? I asked. Right now, I'm more worried about you than your father, she replied gently. It seemed she had noticed I'd been feeling down lately and chose to join me on the trip. Thanks, Mom. I should be thanking you. I'm happy to be on a trip like this with you. I decided to make the most of the trip with my mother, which was a rare treat. However, as soon as we arrived at the hotel, my mother and I noticed something unusual. Mom, look at that. At the hotel, we spotted Liam, who was supposed to be away on his business trip. He was walking closely with another woman, both looking happy as they entered the same hotel where we were supposed to stay. As they walked in, the woman turned her face towards us for a brief moment. You've got to be kidding, I whispered in disbelief. The woman with Liam was my sister Kate. After that moment, shock took over and I have vague memories of how I made it back home. My mother made me some tea, which eventually helped me to start calming down. He had been lying to me, and not just Liam, Kate had deceived me too. After calming down, I called Liam's department. As I suspected, they hadn't been assigning business trips or much overtime for years. When I shared with my mother the days Liam came home late or was away on supposed business trips, it turned out Kate wasn't home on those days either, a detail that struck me. All those times he was late or away on trips, he was meeting Kate, wasn't he? I realized with a surge of anger rather than sadness. With the truth revealed, anger consumed me. Mom, I'm divorcing Liam. I don't want to see Kate, so I won't visit home for a while. She stayed silent but understood my decision. I made all the preparations just before Liam returned. I organized the divorce papers, arranged a new contract for my own house, packed my things, and moved into a temporary apartment before settling into the new place. At our home, I left a letter along with the divorce papers for Liam. I specified that all legal matters, including alimony, would be handled through my lawyer, and I blocked all forms of communication with him. To keep my new address private from Liam and Kate, I didn't inform my parents. Since we worked at the same company, we occasionally crossed paths, but I avoided any interaction with him completely. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Liam quickly agreed to the divorce. He didn't disclose the reason to anyone, but our colleagues seemed to gather it from my behavior and wisely avoided discussing the matter. 3 years went by with me keeping my distance from both Liam and my family. One evening after work, I found my mother waiting for me in my room. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked. "I have something to show you," she replied, holding out an invitation. "It's from Liam and Kate." To my surprise, Kate had left our family home and moved in with Liam. I had considered the possibility they might marry, but I never expected them to actually have a wedding and invite our parents. "So, Mom, are you planning to go?" I asked her. "Of course I am," she answered firmly. I understood that I was the only one who still couldn't forgive them. It seemed they knew this, which was why they had only invited our parents to the wedding. Having distanced myself from Liam and my parents, I felt I had no right to object. Seeing my sadness, my mother smiled reassuringly and said, "Don't worry. I'm not going because I forgive them. Just wait and see." On the day of the wedding, my mother video called me. "I don't want to see their faces," I said, almost hanging up. But I remembered my mother's earlier words and stayed on the call. The screen displayed a slideshow that was being presented. The MC began introducing the slides. This slideshow was created by the bride's mother. She gathered photos from her beloved daughter's birth to the present and created this presentation, the MC announced. I was taken aback that my mother, who wasn't very tech-savvy, had put together such a slideshow. It stirred up a mix of emotions inside me. "Mom, you went through all this effort for Kate." I wondered, feeling a wave of sadness. But then something caught my attention on the screen. "Wait, this isn't Kate," I realized. The slideshow began with a photo of myself as a newborn baby. "So cute, there's a resemblance to Kate somehow," the guests commented in a relaxed atmosphere as they watched the slideshow. Kate's expression grew tense. The MC continued, "Since she was young, the bride has always been dedicated to her family. She excelled as a student and successfully entered her desired university. Upon starting her career, she became a highly reliable employee at the company." Kate's friends and colleagues, who recognized moments from her student days and workplace, began to chatter excitedly. "Hey, isn't that a photo from the welcome party at University J? Kate didn't attend such a prestigious university, did she? Wait, isn't that a photo from the company's welcome party? Hold on closer inspection it looks completely different. Wait, if this isn't Kate." Liam also appeared to have noticed. "What the hell is this? This isn't Kate." Unaware of the bride and groom's shocked expressions, the MC continued to progress through the slides. And then she met the groom, Liam, at the company. According to the bride's mother, she initially trained Liam when he joined the company. Eventually, the two got married. Following this introduction were photos from my wedding with Liam. The MC couldn't hide their confusion, sensing something was amiss. They fell silent. It was then that my mother stepped forward and took the microphone. "Allow me to take over from here and explain," she said calmly as she advanced the slides. "Even after marriage, my daughter supported him both personally and professionally. However, as Liam became increasingly busy, he struggled to find time for her. So my daughter planned a spa trip to help him relax." "Wait, please." Kate cried desperately, her face pale, trying to halt my mother. Ignoring Kate's attempts, my mother continued with the slides. The next photo showed Liam and Kate entering the spa hotel together, looking very close. Finally, photos of the bride and groom appeared, and both the MC and the guests fell silent. Liam and Kate appeared even more pale. But Liam declined my daughter's spa trip invitation, citing a business trip he had to attend. He claimed it couldn't be helped due to work commitments. My daughter invited me instead, and it was during that trip that we discovered his affair. With those words, the room erupted into chatter and speculation prompted by my mother's revelation. Wait, an affair? And this wedding is for Kate and Liam. Could this wedding be based on their affair? But why would Kate's mother? To address the guests' inquiries, my mother continued in a measured tone. "Liam swore to marry my beloved daughter Emma and promised to make her happy. Instead, he betrayed her by having an affair with her own sister, Kate." "Mother, please stop. Today is supposed to be my wedding day. Can't you celebrate my happiness?" Kate cried, pleading with our mother to halt. Ignoring Kate's pleas, my mother stared coldly at her and replied, "I've always wanted you to be happy. But you were the one who shattered that first. Emma always considered not just herself, but the happiness of our family. What about you, Kate? Have you ever considered how much Emma would be hurt by your actions? Well, she always seems so content. It's not fair. So instead of being happy for your family, you just got jealous, huh? My mother-in-law retorted sharply. Mother-in-law, please stop. She's your precious daughter too, isn't she? Can't you celebrate our new beginning? Why are you doing this? Kate pleaded, clearly distressed. I can't accept someone as dishonest as you into our family. Today's ceremony made that clear to me. If you truly wanted to start anew with Kate, why didn't you invite a single person from your own company? If you're going to have such a grand wedding, shouldn't you apologize to Emma? It's selfish to invite me and her father without making any effort like that. But Emma has been ignoring me all this time, Liam protested. Of course she has, after what you've done. It's only natural, my mother-in-law replied firmly. But that's all in the past now, isn't it? Do you think her wounds will heal in just 3 years? And do you think you can regain our trust in such a short time? Don't be ridiculous. My mother's voice echoed angrily as she and my father left the wedding venue. I could hear her speaking through the phone. Did you see that, Emma? She asked. Yes, I replied. I'm sorry for bringing up painful things. I couldn't stand seeing those two act as if nothing happened, she explained. No, thank you. I feel relieved. It's like you said everything I wanted to say, I admitted. That's right, Emma. You always keep everything to yourself. I thought it was too kind of you not to tell your colleagues the reason for your divorce. Later, my mother sent me a recording of her conversation with Liam from the wedding. Indeed, as she had said, time doesn't easily heal such wounds. Moreover, Liam showed no signs of remorse, dismissing it all as a thing of the past. I decided to enact my revenge by exposing Liam during a company presentation. I signed up quickly when I saw he was scheduled to speak and soon found myself in a conference room. When it was Liam's turn, his supervisor, unaware of his remarriage, commented, Liam, you seem even more motivated today, freshly married. Yes, I'm dedicated to doing my best for my family, he replied cheerfully. He must have known I was present, but that only fueled my determination. I played the recorded audio I received from my mother. The room was startled by the sudden noise from the recording. As they learned about his affair with my sister during our marriage, accusations started flying. Liam, didn't you claim the divorce was due to different values? I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Oh really? Did you say something like that? Well, I can't comprehend a value system that includes cheating with your wife's own sister. I apologize for bringing personal matters into this important internal presentation. As of today, I have decided to resign. I have endured this because I value this company, but I cannot continue working alongside him any longer. Just as I prepared to leave, the board members intervened to halt my departure. Wait a moment, Emma. You're a crucial asset to our company. If anyone should leave, it should be Liam. Huh? But I was considered to have a promising future here. We held high hopes for you in the past, but recently your attire has been less formal and you seem less focused. It appears you have lost the problem-solving abilities you once demonstrated. We don't have the same expectations for you as before. Kate, who had always been inept at housework and had done little even while living with our parents, became a full-time housewife after marrying Liam. Apparently, she left most of the household chores for him to handle. Without my advice to guide him through work challenges, Liam began causing more problems. Word of his affair with his wife's sister spread throughout the company, damaging his reputation. During a board meeting, it was decided that I would stay with the company while Liam would be transferred to a remote location with the expectation of eventual layoff. Kate, who had been enjoying a comfortable life as a housewife on Liam's earnings, quickly abandoned him upon discovering the affair and moved on to another man. Unfortunately for her, the new man turned out to be a typical freeloader burdened with debt. Now she is struggling, working 2 jobs day and night to make ends meet. As they say, what goes around comes around. When you do wrong, it eventually catches up with you. Watching Liam and Kate face the consequences of their actions, I finally felt ready to begin a new chapter in my life. Hang in there, Emily. I'm here for you, Jason says, holding Emily's hand tightly. They are so focused on the childbirth that they don't notice me. I resist the urge to react angrily and remind myself to stay professional. Inside, I'm thinking about how to handle this situation. I think my colleague just looked at me in surprise. I need to stay calm and do everything I can to make sure the baby is born safely. After the birth, I look into the room and see them being affectionate with each other, not paying attention to anything else. "You did great, Emily." "Congratulations," I say. "Thank you, Jason," she replies. "Yes, the birth of a baby is a happy event. We should celebrate," I think, grabbing my phone. By the look on my colleague's face, I probably seem upset. First, I call my mother-in-law. "The baby is born. Please come over." After inviting all the relatives, I reflect on my role. My name is Natalie Miller, a 33-year-old working mom. Inspired by my mother, I became a midwife. My mom delivered many babies, celebrating with the parents sometimes and feeling sad when she couldn't save a life. Watching her over the years made me want to be a midwife too. My dad doesn't say much, but he's always been quietly supportive. Both my parents are people I'm really proud of. But there's one family member who's been more challenging. My sister Emily. She lives at home and doesn't have a job, often asking us for money. When I got married, I started keeping my distance from her. "Do what makes you happy, Natalie," my husband Jason would say, always understanding my decisions regarding Emily. That's why I trust Jason so much. Jason works in it, and we're both so busy that we hardly have time for each other. We don't have kids yet. Sometimes I wish we did, but I also like the idea of just us two in our later years. "Don't push yourself too hard, Natalie. Take care of yourself," he tells me often. We live with Jason's mom now. His dad passed away, and we didn't want her to live alone. She's incredibly kind, never pressuring us about not having kids and always looking after me. I feel lucky to have her, even if it sometimes feels like she's the one taking care of me. My days are usually filled with hard work at the hospital. Today was no different, with a complicated delivery that kept me there overnight to care for a premature baby. That's the situation, so I won't be coming home until tomorrow, I told Jason over the phone. "I see. Should I pick you up tomorrow then?" "What about work?" Jason asked, making me quickly check the calendar. Tomorrow was just a regular Thursday, no holiday or special occasion. In my job, I sometimes get weekdays off, but Jason, who works a regular office job, would normally be working on a weekday. Well, I actually had to work on a recent day off. They told me to take a compensatory day off in return. "Really? Well, if you can pick me up, I'd appreciate it," I replied to Jason without much hesitation. The next day, after a very exhausting shift, Jason and I went out to eat, and as soon as we got home, I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already evening, and my mother-in-law was busy cooking dinner in the kitchen. "Mom, I'm sorry. Let me help you," I offered. "It's okay, dear. Jason told me you've had a tough day, haven't you?" "Just rest," she reassured me warmly. I felt relieved by her caring words. Anyway, dinner's almost ready, so there's not much left for me to do. Jason got called into work. "Let's just have dinner together," she suggested, and I nodded in agreement. During dinner, she kept giving me concerned looks. "Is something bothering you?" she finally asked. "I'm just wondering how things have been between you and Jason lately," she continued. "We're the same as always, I think," I replied. "That's good to hear," I replied, puzzled by my mother-in-law's demeanor. I wanted to ask more questions, but she avoided the topic. I figured if it was serious, she would share it with me in time. So I decided not to pry further. Since then, Jason and I seem to be missing each other a lot. We used to spend time together on our days off, sometimes with my mother-in-law joining us for a drive. Lately, though, he's been busy with work. We hardly cross paths at home, and meaningful conversations have become rare. Still, we stay connected through calls and messages, so I never doubted our relationship. Life felt a bit frustrating. One day, encouraged by my mother-in-law, I went shopping with her to take my mind off work. Engrossed in our outing, I was caught off guard when suddenly, "Oh sis, long time no see, huh?" I came face to face with the last person I wanted to see. Emily approached with her usual mischievous smile, still as beautiful as ever, which annoyed me. I thought about escaping, but I couldn't just leave my mother-in-law behind. While pondering my options, Emily walked right up to us. "You still look exhausted. I can't believe you're my older sister," Emily remarked. "Mind your own business," I retorted sharply. Speaking of shopping, since you're out, you must have money, right? Treat me, Emily said with her usual audacity. Here we go again, I sighed inwardly. Since we were young, Emily had always been asking me for money and favors. I've never been one to be taken advantage of, so I've always refused her requests. But she never seems to get the hint. If I didn't give it to her, she would try to take it. My suspicions were confirmed when I caught Emily stealing money from my wallet. My parents and I gave her a serious scolding, but she didn't show any remorse. After that incident, she continued trying to steal from me and even targeted my friends and boyfriends. She's bullying me, Emily would claim, spreading lies about me. While my true friends stood by me, some of my boyfriends ended up leaving me for Emily. This is why Emily and I have never gotten along. I had planned to distance myself from her after high school. But since my mom is a senior midwife and Emily would visit our family home, our paths inevitably crossed. It wasn't until after I got married that we finally grew apart, and yet here she is, standing right in front of me. Why are you here? I asked sharply as we were shopping at a mall near Jason's parents' house. It was a place Emily couldn't easily reach from our family home without a car. She never bothered to get a driver's license, claiming it was too much hassle, and she avoided using public transportation. Well, how should I know? By the way, you're still handling other people's babies. When are you going to have one of your own? Emily taunted. What's that supposed to mean? I retorted, taken aback. Looks like I beat you to it, she said, rubbing her belly. I noticed she had baby items with her. Was she pregnant? I hadn't heard anything about her getting married. Whose child could it be? Enough is enough, my mother-in-law interjected sharply, addressing Emily, who was grinning mischievously. We were enjoying our shopping. We don't need to be disturbed by someone as rude as you. Let's go, Natalie, she said, pulling me away by the arm. Natalie, is she related to you? My mother-in-law asked, clearly curious about the situation. Yes, I replied, recalling that I had introduced Emily to Jason when I brought him to my family home. However, she had canceled both the pre-wedding meeting and the wedding itself. It dawned on me that my mother-in-law and Emily had likely never met. She's my sister. I see, my mother-in-law responded, her expression complicated. I sighed, sensing the tension. Half a year passed by quickly. Jason grew even busier, often not responding to my messages, and my mother-in-law seemed to be spending more time away from home, leaving me alone on my days off. I was expressing my frustrations to a colleague when we received a call about a pregnant woman whose water had broken and was being brought to our hospital. Her name was... What? It was Emily, my own sister. My colleagues noticed my shock and asked if I was okay. Collecting myself, I replied and headed to work. As I entered the delivery room, I was surprised to see a familiar face. Stay strong, Emily. You can do this, I encouraged. To my bewilderment, Jason, who should have been at work, was there beside her, looking like a devoted father-to-be. What? I couldn't help but emit a low groan. I noticed the doctor flinch slightly, but I couldn't take my eyes off the scene unfolding before me. Hang in there, Emily. I'm right here, Jason said, tightly holding Emily's hand, completely absorbed in the moment. I felt a surge of frustration but pushed it aside to focus on my duties. My colleagues seemed taken aback, likely noticing my tense expression. I had to remain composed and ensure the safe delivery of the baby. Dad, please hold Mom's hand tightly, I urged Jason, but he remained fixated on Emily, oblivious to my words. It was maddening, but I had to stay focused. An hour later, the baby was safely born. Congratulations. Thank you. Jason's attention was now completely focused on the newborn baby. It's both a strength and a weakness of his, to be so absorbed in one thing that he often misses other cues, like my icy glares. Leaving the delivery room to my colleagues, I pondered what to do about the situation with those two. After completing my duties, I peeked into their room and found them wrapped up in each other, oblivious to everything else. You did well. Congratulations, Emily, I said. Thank you, Jason, she replied warmly. Yes, the birth of a baby is a joyful occasion. We should celebrate this in a big way, I thought to myself, grabbing my smartphone. Seeing the surprised look on my colleague's face, I realized I must have been wearing a stern expression. I called my mother-in-law first. The baby's been born. Please come over. And as a result of inviting all the relatives. Natalie, were you pregnant? asked one of the relatives who had gathered quickly. My parents looked shocked, sensing my emotions from just my smile. Everyone, please calm down. I'll explain everything, I reassured them. I don't see that fool and your sister, someone remarked, clearly referring to Jason. I wondered if my mother-in-law knew something. With that thought, I led all the relatives to the room where they were. Excuse us. Oh, Natalie, I exclaimed as I entered suddenly, catching Jason and Emily off guard. Their faces went pale as more relatives filed into the room. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law's face flushed red with anger. That foolish son, she muttered under her breath. Confusion filled the room until my mother-in-law spoke up, addressing me first. I apologize for the trouble caused by my foolish son. No, you're not to blame. Did you know about the affair? Yes, actually, my mother-in-law admitted. She recounted how she had once seen Jason and Emily walking together and had wanted to confront me about it, but never found the right moment. That explained her recent odd behavior. She had been secretly investigating ever since, even hiring a private investigator. Wait, what about your job? I asked, trying to grasp the full extent of the situation. Well, about that, Jason quit, she revealed. Sadly, what? I couldn't believe it. This new revelation left me stunned and deeply disappointed. Since when? About a year ago. I was beyond angry now, and it seemed the relatives shared my feelings as they glared coldly at Jason and Emily. You understand, right, Jason? I demanded, looking at him for an explanation. Yes. And Emily, once you're discharged, do you understand too? Yes, I get it, Emily replied sullenly, contrasting Jason's downcast demeanor. Seeing her attitude, I resolved not to show any mercy. Afterward, I carefully reviewed the evidence my mother-in-law had collected. Currently, Jason was being closely watched by the gathered relatives, while Emily was under scrutiny by her own parents. With the evidence at hand, it seemed likely that I could pursue a divorce. Jason had truly proven himself a fool. No, I apologize for my foolish younger sister, I responded. Then, realizing their curiosity, I continued, by the way, if you don't mind me asking, why is your sister like that? Oh, it is probably because of our aunt, I explained. She's a single lady without children who always doted on Emily. With our busy mother, reserved father, and my outspoken nature, Emily naturally gravitated towards an aunt who validated her and spoiled her. Despite my mother's efforts to create distance between them, it seems they stayed in touch behind her back. Unlike Emily, I wasn't pampered like that, and I often told our aunt not to spoil her too much. Perhaps Emily found me annoying and kept her distance. You must have had a tough time, sympathized my relative. Well, she's been a handful since we were kids, I admitted. Even so, I can't entirely blame your aunt. I wonder where I went wrong with Jason, mused my mother-in-law. Her comment made me smile ruefully. I had been completely deceived by Jason. I had always seen him as genuinely kind. Had I been blind? Later, I found out that the relatives had questioned Jason. According to their conversation, Jason and Emily had first met when I brought him to my parents' house. Emily had then said, actually, as I listened to my mother-in-law lament about Emily, she revealed how Emily had cunningly obtained Jason's contact information and started an affair with him. Despite my warnings about Emily's character, Jason, inexperienced with relationships even during his college days, fell into her trap. I had been relieved when he introduced me as his girlfriend, thinking he had moved past any potential entanglements with Emily. It was a shock to realize how wrong I had been. In the midst of this conversation, I received a call from Emily. I put her on speakerphone and answered, Hey sis, Dad and the others are just concerned about you. They'll leave once things settle down. You brought this on yourself, Emily retorted. Mom is just worried about you, I sighed, feeling exasperated by her lack of understanding. Emily persisted. If you're willing to pay them off now, I'll send Mom and the others home. That's impossible. I just gave birth and I don't have any savings, Emily replied defensively. Then you'll have to tolerate being watched, I replied firmly. Hey sis, suddenly, Emily's voice cut off, leaving the conversation hanging. Sorry, I took her phone away. My dad's voice came through before the call abruptly ended. I decided to let my dad handle that situation for now. There was no more room for sympathy towards Emily after that call. I resolved not to go easy on her anymore, despite just giving birth. Don't go easy on Jason either. Hold him accountable, I asserted firmly. Yes, I'll ensure he faces consequences. My mother-in-law agreed as we discussed our next steps. Once everything was in place, I arranged a meeting with Jason and Emily. Jason was ushered in by our relatives, while Emily quietly followed with my dad. Her sudden change in demeanor puzzled me until my mom, holding the baby, whispered in my ear, "Emily was severely scolded after she called you." Come to think of it, I've never seen my usually quiet dad angry, and probably neither had Emily. Experiencing my dad's fury for the first time must have been traumatic for her. I reflected silently. "What? You know why you were called here, right?" I asked, breaking the tense silence. "I'm truly sorry." She came crying to me asking for advice. Jason began, his voice wavering. "But do you really think such an excuse will work on me?" I continued, staring at Jason, who avoided my gaze. Reflecting on the past, Jason had often upset me, although we ultimately chose to live together. At first, he had attempted to move in with my mother-in-law and me without discussing it, causing tension. After confronting him, we agreed on living arrangements, and I had hoped he learned from that incident. Yet now, it appeared he had concealed his intentions skillfully or perhaps ignored the lesson entirely. "Don't you have any other excuses?" "Ever since we were kids, you've always been the favorite," Emily began, her voice filled with bitterness. According to her, our parents consistently praised me while she faced constant criticism. This treatment fueled her resentment towards me, which was further fueled by our aunt's encouragement. When she learned that I was getting married before her, she felt overshadowed and decided to pursue Jason. "That's why I called Jason and got him drunk," Emily admitted, her tone matter of fact. "That's a pretty low move," I responded, trying to contain my anger. "We only got involved once, but she told me if you don't want me to tell sis, do as I say," Emily continued, revealing the extent of her manipulation. "Yet you seemed pretty close when you gave birth," I remarked sarcastically, my frustration evident. Jason looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Why did I end up with someone like him? Is love truly blind? Normally, I would find a man who avoids confrontation like this repulsive. As we kept meeting, I genuinely fell for her, Jason explained, his voice tinged with regret. "Then you should have just broken up with me," I retorted sharply. "Well, I still love you, Natalie, and I wanted a child with you," Jason admitted, his expression pained as my words hit home. Why did he act like a victim now? "What about your job?" My father interjected, steering the conversation forward. "I wanted to spend more time with Emily, so working felt like a waste," Jason admitted, his voice subdued. "And you two were involved more than once, right?" My father's question was direct and unforgiving. "I'm a midwife. I can easily backtrack from the birth to when you got her pregnant. If you hide anything else, I won't forgive you." Emily flinched at my father's stern words, prompting her to confess. She revealed that since Jason had quit his job, they had been meeting almost daily and had been involved multiple times. The revelation left both my mother-in-law and me speechless with disbelief. "I'm going to divorce you anyway," I declared firmly, my voice resolute. "No, please," Jason pleaded, his face filled with regret and desperation. "I'll also cut ties with you. You'll never set foot in this house again," I concluded, my decision final and uncompromising. "Where the hell am I supposed to live?" Jason's panicked question hung in the air. Both my mother-in-law and I made it clear to Jason that his predicament was entirely of his own making. Thanks to my mother-in-law's decision to hire a private investigator, we had uncovered another startling revelation about why Jason had quit his job. "If you're desperate, I can refer you somewhere," I stated coldly. "Huh?" Jason looked bewildered. "Prison. It's not so bad. You get a roof over your head, 3 meals a day, and even earn a little money," I informed him bluntly. Jason's face drained of color at my words. It turned out that Jason had been embezzling money, which had led to his dismissal from work. He had managed to repay the embezzled funds to avoid legal trouble. But that money came from selling off my savings and my mother-in-law's possessions. The realization hit me hard. I had been oblivious to his actions, and I felt deeply betrayed and foolish. "Natalie, I'm not going to show any mercy. If you keep arguing, I'll hand you over to the police." I cut Jason off, my voice firm and resolute. He slumped under my cold stare, realizing the gravity of the situation. I had already arranged for the police to be there, waiting for the moment. "Emily, don't you dare call me sister again." I truly despise you from the bottom of my heart, I declared firmly to Emily, who was escorted away by my father. That was the last interaction I had with her. Now, moving forward. We wasted no time packing our belongings and decided to move to a new home, ensuring safety from any potential return by Jason. The new place is closer to my hospital workplace, and we've extended invitations to my parents to join us. This marks a proper farewell to Jason and Emily. Since then, Jason was found wandering around our empty old house and was taken away by some intimidating men in black suits. Meanwhile, Emily has found a new job and has been working diligently, juggling multiple part-time jobs. My parents informed me of this. They decided to leave Emily with the house as a final act of kindness. She likely spends her days working hard to maintain it. Despite everything, she's resilient. In our new home, we've been raising Emily's child together. My mother, despite being retired, has a wealth of baby-raising knowledge, and my mother-in-law has been a constant source of support, caring for the child with love and dedication. Thanks to them, I've been able to nurture the child with confidence. Financially, my father and I are stable, each contributing to the household. Though not related by blood, this child was long awaited and has brought immense joy into my life. I'm grateful to my mother and mother-in-law for their unwavering support in this journey. I've renamed her Mindy and consider her my own. One day, she may come to understand her origins and face challenges because of it. When that time comes, I'll be there by her side, supporting her through it all. Until then, my goal is to be the kind of mother she can always be proud of. Today, I cherish life and hope for boundless happiness for Mindy and the new life that has come into our world. With this prayer in my heart, I'm ready to face whatever challenges life brings. Don't come back here because my girlfriend and I are going to live in this house. On the day my 3-year-old daughter was finally allowed to come home from the hospital after being there for a month, I returned to find my husband living with another woman. I was shocked by his betrayal. Both he and his girlfriend laughed at me, mocking me. To make things worse, my husband had the nerve to call me back to clean up the house, essentially kicking me out. Furious, I talked to some people and made sure my husband and his girlfriend faced consequences for their actions. My name is Emily. I met my husband Michael through my sister's husband, and we lived together with our 3-year-old daughter. We built our house while I was pregnant. We chose everything together, keeping it white inside and out, which I really liked. However, white gets dirty easily, so it needs a lot of cleaning. My husband gets very upset if there is even a small stain. He gets angry when our daughter spills food or dirties the walls. But he never helps clean up. He just complains that the house is dirty. He always points out the tiniest details, and lately I've been getting really fed up with it. Initially, I quit my job and became a full-time housewife after we got married. But when our daughter started kindergarten, I decided to work part-time to save money for the future. Since I started working, I hoped my husband would help more with housework and childcare. However, he thinks that my part-time job is my own choice. So he continues to leave all the household and childcare duties to me, just like before. One day, after sending our daughter to kindergarten, my sister and her husband, who live nearby, were supposed to visit our house. I tried to tidy up as much as possible while helping my daughter get ready in the morning. My husband got annoyed that our daughter was touching things with her messy hands and called me before he left for work, complaining that I wasn't disciplining her properly. Even though he used to adore her when she was born, lately he looks at her as if she is something dirty. I try not to show my feelings in front of our daughter, but his attitude has been really upsetting me. Because my husband complained, I was running late to take my daughter to kindergarten and rushed to get back home to meet my sister and her husband. They had decided to visit just 2 days earlier when they called to see if I had time to meet. I thought they must have something important to talk about, but when I saw them at the front door, I realized it might not be good news. I invited my sister and her husband into the living room, and although they complimented our always clean house, their expressions remained serious. After I served them coffee, my sister's husband finally gathered the courage to speak. Actually, I've heard some not-so-good rumors about Michael. What he said next was unbelievable. Apparently, my husband was having an affair with a coworker. My husband was originally introduced to me by my sister's husband, but they weren't directly acquainted. It was through a mutual friend of theirs, my husband's brother. In other words, my brother-in-law's friend works at the same company as my husband, and he had heard some bad rumors from a colleague. One of the colleagues said that a female coworker had been going around saying she has a boyfriend in the company, and it seemed like she was talking about my husband. Just as my brother-in-law's friend was trying to discreetly find out if the rumors were true, he accidentally stumbled upon my husband and the woman together. They weren't even trying to hide it, openly flirting at the company. His friend was shocked, took a photo of them, and reported it to my brother-in-law. Then my brother-in-law told my sister's husband and showed him the photo. Even though my sister's husband initially couldn't believe it, he had to accept the truth when he saw the photo evidence. He had the photos with him, but I chose not to look at them. My sister and her husband apologized, feeling sorry for introducing me to a man who would cheat. Finding out about my husband's affair left me unsure of what to do. I had never doubted him before my sister's husband shared his story. Most of all, I didn't want to take my daughter's father away from her. But I also couldn't bear the idea of being betrayed. Just as I was about to discuss next steps with my sister and her husband, my phone rang. It was the kindergarten, informing me that my daughter had a high fever and needed to be picked up. It looks like my daughter is sick with a fever, so I needed to go pick her up. When I mentioned this, my sister and her husband, who had come by car, offered to come with me to get my daughter. The three of us went together to pick her up from kindergarten. When we got to the kindergarten, my daughter looked exhausted, and it was clear her illness was more serious than a common cold. Her cheeks appeared swollen, and her teacher mentioned that a classmate had MPS, raising concerns that my daughter might have it too. We hurried to the hospital and informed the reception about our suspicions regarding MPS, given her symptoms. They decided she needed immediate tests because there was a risk of complications. While waiting for the test results, I became anxious and tried calling my husband, but he didn't answer and didn't call me back. Soon after, we learned from the test results that my daughter had MPS and had developed meningitis. She was admitted to the hospital immediately and settled into a room. After getting an explanation about her hospitalization and seeing that she was asleep, I decided to go home to prepare for her stay. My sister and her husband offered to stay with her, so I called a taxi and headed home. Late at night, my husband finally returned my call. He sounded annoyed that I had called him while he was at work and said sharply, "Don't call me during work." I explained our daughter's condition, her fever, hospitalization, and meningitis diagnosis, but he didn't seem to grasp how serious it was. He responded dismissively, "You're with her at the hospital, so don't bother me with every little thing. I'll stay there for a while to be with her." "All right, I'll leave it to you," he said, and then abruptly hung up without expressing any concern for our daughter. As a result, my daughter stayed in the hospital for over a month. During that time, my sister, her husband, my parents, and even my in-laws visited us frequently, worried about her. Surprisingly, my husband never visited once. When it was time for my daughter to be discharged, I asked my husband to pick us up, but he refused, claiming he was too busy with work. I shared this with my sister, and she and her husband offered to drive us home instead. On the day of my daughter's discharge, my sister's husband drove us home. It was a relief to see my daughter back to her normal self after such a long ordeal. However, when we arrived home, I noticed my husband's car in the parking lot, even though he was supposed to be at work. Through the window, I could see the silhouette of a woman inside. My sister and her husband also saw it and were furious, convinced it was his affair partner. I stopped them from barging in, left my sleeping daughter with them in the car, and went inside alone. When I entered the living room, I saw a woman standing close to my husband, just as I had seen from outside the window. When my husband noticed me, he quickly moved away from her. But it was already too late. I had seen everything. "Hey, I'm back. Who's this?" I asked him. Instead of answering, my husband stepped in front of the woman as if to shield her from me. Ignoring my question, he demanded, "Why are you here?" I couldn't believe it. He had forgotten the day our daughter was supposed to come home from the hospital. "I told you today was the day she's getting out of the hospital," I insisted. "No way. You said it was tomorrow. You tricked me into coming back today." My husband's response made it clear he had been so focused on bringing his mistress home that he forgot about our daughter. The woman peeked around my husband, looked at me, and smirked. Then she remarked to him, "Is this your wife?" What a chubby old lady. Hearing that, my husband's attitude hardened as he declared, "Yeah, I've got a young and cute girlfriend now. We decided to live here together, so don't come back." He put his arm around his mistress, as if to emphasize their relationship. I recalled the moment my sister's husband had revealed the affair to me. Despite my initial hesitation about divorce, witnessing my husband's behavior during our daughter's hospitalization shattered any remaining love I have for him. He hadn't visited our daughter even once in the hospital, leaving me to handle everything alone while he took advantage of my absence to spend time with his mistress in our home. I had taken time off from my part-time job and was exhausted from running between the hospital and home. Instead of supporting me during this difficult time, he was flaunting his new relationship and demanding I stay away from our own house. I was forced to clean up after my husband and his mistress, who had the audacity to tell me not to come back home. Exhausted and unable to argue any longer, I quickly packed my things and returned to the car where my sister and her husband were waiting. As I left, my husband and his mistress laughed at me. In the car, I shared what had happened with my sister and her husband. They were ready to confront my husband, but I stopped them. I didn't want my daughter to witness a scene like that, so I asked them to take us to my parents' house instead. We found a warm welcome there, and my daughter gradually improved while staying with my parents. From the time our daughter started crawling, my husband seemed only concerned about cleanliness and rarely interacted with her. His affection for her was fleeting, and she likely doesn't have many memories of him being loving or attentive. She never expressed a desire to see her father or mentioned feeling lonely. I didn't have the energy to confront my husband when I left our house, but I couldn't let things continue like this. Now that my daughter was recovering and could possibly return to kindergarten, I started to consider what to do about my husband. One day, I got a call from him. Curious about what he wanted to say, I answered. He bluntly told me, "The house is dirty. Come back and clean it." Even though he should have been living there with his affair partner, it seemed like neither of them did any housework. My sister had mentioned she was young and likely hadn't lived on her own before, leaving household chores to her family. It was absurd for my husband, who had told me not to return, to now demand that I come back just to clean. His request struck me as incredibly selfish. I declined his request in disbelief. "You should clean your own house, or maybe that girl you're having an affair with can do it," I retorted, hanging up the phone. Despite my husband's persistent calls afterward, I ignored them all. I could only imagine his frustration on the other end, unsure of what would happen next. Later that night, after putting my daughter to bed with the help of my parents, I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard a commotion at the front door. Curious, I went to investigate. As I opened the door, I was shocked to see my husband and his affair partner standing there, completely soaked in red. Behind them, my sister and her husband, along with my in-laws, stood with stern expressions, ensuring they couldn't escape. My husband and his affair partner apologized, saying, "We are truly sorry." However, my sister, her husband, and my in-laws didn't accept their apology. What covered them from head to toe was not blood but tomato juice. After my husband had called me to clean the house, I immediately informed my sister, her husband, and my in-laws about it. My sister and her husband visited my husband first, while my in-laws, who lived nearby, drove over to his place. My sister and her husband tricked my husband into going to the garden, pretending they needed some gardening tools I owned. When he turned his back, they pelted him with tomatoes. Startled, he turned around, only to have more tomatoes thrown at his face. These tomatoes were overripe and very soft, sourced as waste from a farm owned by a relative of my sister's husband. They wouldn't have caused much physical pain upon impact, but their squishy inside splattered easily, which clearly affected my husband, who prized cleanliness. My sister and her husband didn't give him a chance to react and continued throwing tomatoes. The tomatoes not only hit my husband but also splattered against the pristine white walls of the house, causing chaos. As this unfolded, my in-laws arrived on the scene. My husband was now being bombarded with tomatoes by my sister, her husband, and my in-laws. Amidst his panic screams and flailing, his affair partner, curious about the commotion, appeared in the garden. Without hesitation, she too became a target for the tomatoes. Attempting to flee back inside, she was forcefully pulled back out by my sister and ended up running alongside my husband in the garden. I overheard everything while on the phone from the moment my sister and her husband showed up at my husband's place. Every time the walls outside got dirty, my husband would scream sadly, and his affair partner would join in crying and panicking. Eventually, my sister, her husband, and my in-laws through all the tomatoes they had brought. By then, the two of them had calmed down completely. They were then walked to my parents' house nearby. Even though I can never forgive what my husband and his lover did, hearing my husband's pitiful voice and the lover's cries made me feel a bit better. It was almost funny to see them both so desperate, apologizing to me. My sister's husband came up with this plan. After my daughter left the hospital, I began to doubt my husband's behavior during her stay. I decided to set up the baby monitor we used when she was little in our bedroom. I suspected that if my sister's husband was right, my husband might have been bringing his lover to our house while our daughter and I were away. I was anxious that the hidden baby monitor, concealed near a houseplant, would be discovered at any moment. Fortunately, neither my husband nor his lover found it, and it captured everything they did. Since the day my daughter was in the hospital, it seemed like my husband was living with his lover at our house part-time. Each time I returned home, I saved the recorded footage as proof. After my daughter left the hospital and I confirmed my husband's affair, I confided in my sister and her husband about the video evidence and sought their advice on what to do next. They suggested involving my in-laws first. My in-laws live about a 30-minute drive away and are usually calm people, unlike my husband who often gets angry. So with my sister and her husband, I took the evidence to my in-laws' house. At first, they found it hard to believe that their son could cheat. However, when we showed them the footage, they saw undeniable proof of my husband being intimate with his lover. They had no choice but to believe me. What's worse, my husband was heard saying hurtful things about our daughter, like how she just makes a mess and isn't cute at all, and that he wanted to throw both her and me out. This revelation made my in-laws furious. They wanted to confront my husband immediately. But my sister, her husband, and I convinced them to hold off for the moment. When my husband found out I knew about the affair, he became defiant. We didn't want to give in to his wishes for a quick divorce, so we discussed with my in-laws how to come up with a fitting punishment. Seeing the evidence on the video, my in-laws were also deeply hurt and immediately agreed to our plan. After brainstorming together, we decided on a unique punishment, throwing tomatoes at him. This idea came from my sister's husband, who had studied in Spain and was inspired by the tomato festival there. We thought it would be satisfying because my husband really dislikes getting dirty, and throwing tomatoes wouldn't cause any harm. It was also convenient timing since my sister's husband's relatives, who are farmers, had an excess of tomatoes that were going to be discarded. Initially, I was taken aback by the unusual idea, but I soon realized that simply throwing tomatoes wouldn't suffice. I felt my husband deserved to experience some discomfort from being hit by tomatoes, so I agreed to the plan. My sister, her husband, and my in-laws were all set to carry it out. I wanted to join in throwing tomatoes at my husband as well, but I was still concerned about my daughter's well-being and couldn't leave my parents' house. Additionally, my sister and her husband felt guilty for introducing me to my husband, and my in-laws felt responsible for how they raised their son. So it was decided that the four of them would proceed with the plan without me. I made sure they promised to do it outside the house, not inside. Despite my disappointment at not being able to throw tomatoes myself, witnessing my husband and his lover in such a pitiful state, thanks to my family, was oddly satisfying. I had already informed my parents about my husband's affair, so when they were brought to my parents' house, they were visibly uneasy. I threw the divorce papers at my husband without looking him in the eye and said firmly, "Let's get divorced. I have all the evidence of your affair. You'll also need to pay child support." Upon hearing the mention of child support, the lover reacted with disbelief. It seemed she had been imagining marrying my husband, becoming a housewife, and living comfortably. Realizing that child support payments could burden her financially, she began denying any involvement, claiming, "I have nothing to do with this man." That's when I mentioned the footage from the baby monitor. At this point, the lover argued that it was an invasion of privacy, and my husband backed her up, threatening legal action against me. However, my in-laws, along with my sister and her husband, scolded them harshly. Still shaken from the tomato incident, both of them fell silent quickly. When I reiterated to my husband that he needed to agree to the divorce, he reluctantly began to complain. "I've been supporting you all this time, and as a housewife, you should obey your husband. You can't even clean properly. You were a useless wife. It's only natural that I cheated on you. my husband sarcastically remarked, mocking the idea of a part-time working mother being able to support herself. However, there was a reason why I decided to return to my parents' house this time. It wasn't just because my parents and my sister and her husband welcomed me back, but also because I was offered a full-time position at my part-time job. When I informed my husband about this opportunity, he clicked his tongue in frustration. That's when I made it clear to him that my daughter and I would never return to that house again. Predictably, my husband started complaining about who would clean the walls of the house. But ultimately, it was his infidelity that caused all of this, and he was entirely at fault. When he demanded that I pay for cleaning the exterior, my in-laws had had enough. They disowned him right then and there for bringing up such trivial matters at this point. After being disowned by my in-laws, my husband unexpectedly proposed to his mistress. Covered in tomato and feeling humiliated, she had lost all affection for him, and the idea of paying child support added to her rejection. She bluntly told my husband, "I'm not interested in a man without money," leaving him stunned. Under our stern gazes, my husband reluctantly agreed to our divorce. We informed them that we would continue discussions through our lawyers, and then we sent my husband and his mistress away. I'm not sure what they discussed on their way back, but apparently, they ended up angrily arguing and parted ways, cursing each other out. Afterwards, my husband ended up living alone in our house, struggling to manage the mortgage and child support payments on his own. He tried seeking help from his brother, but was coldly turned away and cut off from his family. Now he had no one left to rely on. Meanwhile, the mistress faced repercussions from the rumors about her relationship with my husband. She ended up quitting her job, and when her affair was discovered by her parents, they disowned her just like my husband's family did to him. She was kicked out of her parents' home and now lives in a cheap, run-down apartment. During the day, she works part-time, and at night, she works in a nightclub to make ends meet. My sister once spotted the mistress working at a store's register and remarked how much weight she had lost and how aged she looked, despite being in her early 20s. It's heartbreaking to think about how a single mistake could dramatically alter someone's life and rob them of so many potential happy moments. As for me, I've started working full-time with the support of my parents, sister, and her husband, who welcome me back to their home. It's challenging at times, but I'm beginning to feel a sense of achievement as I take on more responsibilities at work. My daughter has settled into living with my parents and is thriving each day. When we lived with my husband, she struggled to get along with adult men, likely due to his yelling. Now, she's gradually overcoming that thanks to the kindness shown by my sister's husband and my father. Surrounded by a caring family, my daughter and I are now enjoying a peaceful and happy life. Thinking you're so important just because of $300. I don't care about such a small amount of money. Chuckling, my son and his wife looked down on me, hurling harsh words. I've been helping them for 10 years since they told me they were struggling financially. Even though they never found steady jobs, I held my tongue and tried to find ways to support them. And what do I get in return? Why did I bother helping them in the first place? I thought someday they would appreciate my efforts and soften their attitude, but that day never came. Isn't it clear now? I can't help but feel angry at them for laughing it off, saying it's not enough or just pennies after I've dedicated 10 years of my time and savings to them. I have devoted myself silently to my son and his wife, but today that changes. My name is Mary, a homemaker in my 50s. Since my husband passed away, I've been living alone. We have a son who moved out after college and now has a family nearby. Though our relationship isn't great, they've been a bit troublesome. After college, my son got a job where he met his wife, who became a full-time homemaker after they married. However, less than a year later, my son quit his job due to issues with his boss, assuming he'd easily find another. But things didn't go as planned. Despite searching, he struggled to find suitable work and eventually gave up altogether. His wife didn't show interest in working either, and within months they faced financial difficulties. To help them, I began sending them a modest $300 each month. They were grateful and thanked me for the support. Every day, I hoped they would overcome their difficulties and become self-sufficient. But now, after 10 years, my monthly $300 isn't appreciated anymore. It's something they feel entitled to receive. For example, one busy month filled with family events, I couldn't find time to meet my son and his wife on the usual day. I give them their monthly money. Late that night, I heard loud knocks on the door. It was my son and his wife. "Mom, we need the money on time. Are you starting to forget things because you're getting older?" My son teased. Tired and sleepy from a hectic few days, I replied, "I'll give it to you another time. Please go home for now." Then his wife, her face red with anger, said, "This happens every month. You have to give it on time. Just because you're my husband's mother doesn't mean you can behave like this." And she grabbed me by the collar. Shocked by the sudden confrontation, I reluctantly handed over the $300 to my son and his wife, which I had prepared earlier. "If you had just given it to us in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. I don't want to resort to physical force with you either," his wife continued. "You should listen to us and behave. Remember, if you ever lose your mind, we'll be the ones taking care of you. It wouldn't hurt to stay on our good side, right?" Their audacity infuriated me, but I feared that challenging them might cause them to depend on me even more, much like when my son quit his job. So, swallowing my anger, I smiled, apologized, and did as they demanded. Looking back, I realized I should have stood up for myself then. But my overwhelming desire for them to become self-sufficient left me feeling powerless. The unpleasant memories with them weren't just confined to that day. I received a call from a concerned neighbor. "Mary, can we discuss your son and his wife?" "Oh dear," I apologize. "I'll be right there." Apparently, when the neighbor returned from shopping, she noticed signs of a break-in at her place. After checking the security footage, she was shocked to see that the culprits were actually my son and his wife. Although her home was ransacked, nothing appeared to be stolen. Knowing about my strained relationship with them, she chose to contact me first. I left work early and reached out to my son and his wife. Together, we visited the neighbor to apologize. "I'm truly sorry," I kept repeating, but my son and his wife didn't seem remorseful. The neighbor seemed displeased, but things settled down after I agreed to cover the cost of the broken window. However, on the way back home, they said something shocking. "Why are older people so uptight? We just needed to borrow a few things," they remarked. I was so taken aback that all I could manage was, "Like what?" They continued, not even looking at me. "Sure, we broke a window and made a mess, but we didn't steal anything. Isn't she overreacting?" My son simply nodded in agreement. I couldn't comprehend what they were saying and remained silent the entire journey. Watching everything unfold, I should have found the courage to speak up to them instead of being afraid. My silence only showed my weakness. After that incident, I noticed their behavior becoming more aggressive. Thankfully, aside from the neighbor incident, they didn't cause major problems. So I continued to help them, hoping they would become self-sufficient one day. Whenever they asked for something, I bought it if I could afford it. My son wanted gadgets to socialize, while his wife desired luxury items to feel on par with others. Their demands kept growing, and they increasingly relied on me for everything. Even on my days off, they'd call me over for household chores. I worked tirelessly. They wanted more than just money. They lacked the means and motivation to earn for themselves. Thus, I felt obligated to support them. Despite my exhaustion, I remained dedicated to my job and fulfilled their requests, which left me drained. I developed dark circles under my eyes, my skin became rough, and dizziness became a regular issue. My son and his wife mocked me, saying, "You look like a mess," and his wife even pointed at me, saying, "She's given up on herself." I didn't have the energy to defend myself against their hurtful words. Deep down, I knew I was reaching my limit, but I felt if I stopped working and helping them, everything would fall apart for all of us. So, despite my exhaustion, I kept pushing myself, determined to hold everything together. Honestly, I had wanted to lean on someone and give up a long time ago. One day, while I was doing chores at my son's house, a small incident sparked an argument. I was already stressed and tired, so every little thing they did annoyed me. His wife then made a cutting remark, saying, "You act like $300 is such a big deal." My son, influenced by her words, added, "We don't need that messy amount," and handed back the $300 I had given them that day. They scoffed, saying, "If you're going to give us money, bring a decent amount," mocking and looking down on me. Those words sparked something inside me. "Fine then," I blurted out, "I'll stop. I won't think about the future or your feelings anymore." They both looked puzzled as I began packing my things to leave, but soon they burst out laughing. "Come on, Mom, quit playing around. If we left you, you'd be all alone. You wouldn't have the courage to live without your precious son and his wife," my son mocked. "Mary, since when did you become such a joker? That wasn't funny at all." You had me worry for a moment there, his wife chimed in. They thought I was just venting frustration and not serious about ending the financial support. They continued to mock me. If you've got the courage, go ahead and leave, they challenged. But if you do, we'll cut ties with you. Think you can handle being all alone? You'll regret those words soon enough. Your stubborn mom could never do something like that, right? I felt completely cornered by their words, yet they continued to treat me poorly. I started questioning what I was gaining from supporting them. Buying them things they wanted, doing their chores. Wasn't I just being used and taken advantage of? It felt like they were exploiting my kindness, treating me like a servant even when I was at my breaking point. They might be family by blood, but their behavior made it hard to see them that way. I'm serious. Remember that you asked for this, I asserted, but they just laughed it off, treating my words like a joke. Go ahead and try, but you'll regret it soon. I can already see it. My son's words ignited a fierce determination within me. I'm not going to take this lying down. I'll make them realize how much they've underestimated me and how wrong it is to treat me this way. As I packed up to leave their house, all I could think about was how I would stand up for myself. First things first, I cut off all the support I had been providing to my son and his wife, just as I had promised. No more money, no more financial aid, and no more helping out around their house. Nothing. From my perspective, I had always lived for the sake of my son and his wife, prioritizing their needs over my own. Taking action without considering them was new to me. Now, I could take a break without worrying about them. I could spend my money on myself and do chores just for my own satisfaction. Experiencing this newfound freedom was truly wonderful. My son and his wife believed I would never cut ties with them and live independently. But in reality, the independence I had yearned for over a decade was exactly what I achieved. Moreover, I decided to exert more pressure on them. I had leased the apartment they lived in after they were evicted from their previous place due to financial difficulties. Naturally, I was also the one paying the rent. Since I had decided to stop supporting them entirely, it didn't make sense to continue paying their rent. Therefore, I contacted the real estate manager and terminated the lease. The manager, who understood our situation, cooperated with me. They were given a month's notice to vacate the apartment, with the understanding that if they didn't comply, formal action would be taken. That night, I sent a text to my son and his wife, informing them that if they didn't move out of the apartment within a month, it would become a serious matter. They read the message right away, and within minutes, my phone started ringing. Mom, what the hell is this? Where are we supposed to go? My son shouted as soon as I answered. I could hear his wife panicking in the background. You may have forgotten, but I was the one paying for that apartment. I told you I was stopping all support, didn't I? So, canceling the lease was the next step. I replied calmly. We never agreed to that. You said you'd stop sending money, but we assumed everything else would continue, my son protested. I chuckled at his naive expectation. Really? While you speak so harshly to me, you thought you could still rely on my support for everything else, except the allowance? It's astonishing to see how naive my son and his wife can be. I had let them treat me however they pleased for too long. Even when I expressed my discomfort, I always gave in to their demands, financially and with my time. It was somewhat selfish of me, hoping they would eventually become independent. But I was mistaken. They were the type to take advantage of my generosity as much as they were pampered by it. In hindsight, I should have clearly asserted my position and made them understand. I was the one providing allowance, offering financial support beyond that, and taking care of their household chores. However they look at it, I held the upper hand, and they should have shown gratitude and respect towards me. Instead, they treated me with utter disrespect, like a servant, a mere tool, an ATM to be used at their convenience. To make matters worse, they even laughed at me. When I was at my wit's end, why did I exert myself so much for such an unreasonable couple? Even when they treated me unfairly, I remained silent and let them have their way. Despite all I did for them, they never appreciated my efforts. They only took advantage of me. It wasn't until I reached my breaking point that I realized how selfish and dismissive they truly are, and how they never truly saw me as family. They may have viewed me as a resource, but never as family, not even a little bit. Why didn't I see this sooner? Why did I keep giving my all until I felt completely overwhelmed? Why did I continue believing in them? Looking back, I realized how pitiful my past actions were. I tirelessly supported them, hoping they would eventually become self-sufficient, but all my efforts seemed to count for nothing. As I reflect on the past, my anger towards them intensifies. I feel the need to confront them and demand accountability. I won't be satisfied until they acknowledge their mistakes and apologize. Fueled by these emotions, I spoke up again. I'm going to stop the allowance but continue with the other support. What do you think? I asked them. That's not going to happen. My son tried to interject, but I cut him off firmly. No buts. You understand me. Your lives have always relied on me. If you ever upset me or if I decide not to help you one day, you'd be in trouble. Fortunately for you, I've been naive enough to keep hoping that maybe someday you'll become independent, that perhaps you won't need me to get by. That's right, Mom is kind. That's why you're not really going to abandon us, right? You just said those things in the heat of the moment and now you can't take them back. So you're doing this, right? It's okay, we forgive you. Let's try to be a family again, okay? My son pleaded. Don't be foolish. I've finally seen things clearly. Despite all the support, you two don't even want to be independent, do you? You just want to keep living comfortably on my dime, don't you? I retorted firmly. Trying to explain himself, my son backpedaled. That's not it. We did want to be independent, but we couldn't. We haven't even been looking for jobs. My wife feels the same. We tried in our own way, but it's been impossible. Almost laughing at his response, I couldn't believe their audacity to claim they had tried their best in their own way. I had been observing my son and his wife closely for years. Neither of them seemed to put any effort into finding jobs or living frugally. Instead, they were comfortably living off me every single day. How could they possibly say they had tried their best? Listen, Mom, we're really grateful for everything you've done. We can't even express it in words, but you've always gone above and beyond for us. We know we depend on you to live, and we'd be lost without you. So why don't we start over? You need us too, right? My son pleaded. Are you kidding me? I don't need you, I responded bluntly. On one hand, there's a guy who's still stuck on some trouble from 10 years ago, never holding down a steady job and just being lazy. And on the other hand, there's a woman acting like a stay-at-home wife, never supporting or pushing her husband, just doing as she pleases. You think I need people like you too? You couldn't be more wrong. Do you have any idea how much I've endured because of you too? Day in and day out, I work to make money for you, and even when I'm not working, I'm doing chores for you. It's been incredibly tough, and I finally come to realize that. After all that, I'm not naive enough to want to be family with you too. Don't say such harsh things, Mom. We need you, my son insisted. Without someone like you supporting us all the time, Despite my words, my son continued to argue from his perspective, disregarding mine. As I pondered what to do next, I suddenly heard a voice shout, "Give me that." Then his wife took the phone. Mary, honestly, I've been frustrated with my husband's selfish behavior too. Most men go out, work, and support their family, but he just wanders around, not working. For my sake, I regret marrying him every day. I feel just as hurt as you do. I'm a victim too. Please help me. Even if it's just me, I can't do this without you. After making her shocking plea to abandon her husband to save herself, his wife continued, I'll do anything you need me to do, whether it's housekeeping or anything else. Use me however you want. Please, Mary, don't abandon me. Her words left me stunned, and I could hear the couple arguing loudly over the phone, each trying to assert control of the conversation. Annoyed by the chaos, I frowned, and suddenly, it seemed the phone was knocked out of hand and the call disconnected. Days passed without a call back from them. It turned out their relationship had deteriorated significantly after that incident, leading them to decide on divorce and go their separate ways. They blamed each other and even fought over money, prolonging the dispute until their divorce was finalized. After the divorce, both of them tried reaching out to me, but by then, I had already blocked their numbers. So I never heard from them again. My son took on a factory job, working day and night just to make ends meet. Meanwhile, his ex-wife tearfully returned to her parents' home and confessed everything. They reprimanded her harshly. She came to apologize, accompanied by her parents, but she was crying so much that I couldn't make out her words. Since then, I've been living for myself. For a decade, I had been tied down by their needs and never had a moment to focus on myself. Embracing a life centered around my own needs felt incredibly refreshing and liberating. Although I ended up alone without them, I found solace in it. I'm uncertain about the future, There may come a time when I won't have the luxury to live solely for myself. But for now, I believe I deserve to prioritize my own happiness. People who come in small, cheap cars often leave right away. For my mom's 60th birthday, I decided to take her and my daughter to a fancy restaurant that's always busy. But something unexpected happened. The restaurant manager started making fun of us, saying we looked poor. "Let's just go," my mom said angrily. But the manager just smiled meanly. Then all the other customers stood up together, glaring at the manager. My name is Rebecca Miller. I'm 28 years old, a single mom with a 3-year-old daughter. I separated from my husband because we had different values. After that, I decided to raise my daughter alone. When I told my mom, she welcomed us warmly. All the stress I had been feeling came out, and I started crying. Seeing me like that, my mom invited us to live with her. She's been alone since my dad passed away a few years ago. She said she'd be happy to have us, so I accepted her kind offer. My mother is turning 60 this year, and I wanted to do something special for her. So, I made a reservation at a fancy restaurant that's usually booked years in advance. I've always wanted to try it. I expected to wait a long time, but luckily, there was a cancellation, and I got a reservation for my mom's birthday month. When I told her, she was thrilled. Seeing her so happy made it all worth it. Finally, the day of our reservation arrived. I drove my mom and daughter to the restaurant. I never thought we'd have any problems. "You're Miss Rebecca Miller who made a reservation, right? Please come this way," said the host. The grand entrance was perfect for a high-end restaurant. My mom and I were amazed by the fancy decor. Only my daughter was her usual cheerful self. Seeing her, both my mom and I smiled. My mom looked so happy, and I felt like this was going to be a great day. "Sorry for the wait. Here's your appetizer." The server placed a salad in front of us with careful precision. Just looking at the dish made my mom and me excited. They even had a special menu for my daughter, which I thought was a nice touch. While we were enjoying our meal, my mom glanced around the restaurant. "I recognized that person, and that one over there, the one from TV." "Yeah," I replied with a smile, helping my daughter with her food. Then I thought, and looked around like my mom. Sure enough, I recognized many faces and felt like I had joined this glamorous world. It seemed like everyone was smiling at the sight of my happy mom and daughter. Even though the restaurant had been nice about our reservation, I had been worried about bringing my young child. But the friendly looks from people around us made me feel at ease. The appetizers were done, and the first main course was brought out. The elegant and lavish presentation made me instinctively take out my phone to snap a photo. Immediately, a staff member approached me. He was different from the person who showed us to our table and had a very displeased look, which made me feel a bit taken aback. "Excuse me, can you please not take photos?" he said. "Oh, I'm sorry. This is what happens with poor folks. Why do we even have people like you in our establishment? Who let you in?" "Huh?" I clearly heard his muttered comment, and it made me feel quite uncomfortable. Trying not to let it show, I looked down, not wanting to dampen my mother's spirits. But as I wrestled with my feelings, my daughter's crying brought me back to reality. She had dropped the bread she was eating on the floor, and her cries echoed in the quiet restaurant. Other patrons started turning their attention to us, and in a panic, I tried to soothe her. But the more I rushed, the less effective I was. That's when the rude staff member approached again. "Ma'am, you're disturbing the other patrons with the noise." "I'm so sorry. I'll calm her down right away." "You shouldn't bring kids to places like this," he said, his sarcasm evident. This time, my mother clearly heard him. She frowned and spoke softly but firmly to the staff member. "Your attitude is what's really tarnishing the reputation of this place." However, her words backfired. The staff's attitude became even more hostile. "You do realize this isn't a place for children, right? I was just letting you know. If you keep making a scene, should I call security?" His arrogance and rudeness made both me and my mother furious, but we realized that getting angry would only play into his hands. Taking a deep breath, I tried to remain calm. Beside me, I could hear my mother doing the same. "I truly apologize for the disturbance. My daughter has stopped crying. Can you give us a moment?" I said, trying to diffuse the tension. The staff member stood with his arms crossed, staring at us, clearly waiting for our next move. "Could you please calm down? You're inconveniencing other guests," he retorted sharply. To distract my daughter, I'd offered her some bread from my plate. Thankfully, it worked. She stopped crying and happily started eating. I let out a sigh of relief and shared a glance with my mom, trying once more to apologize to the staff before taking my seat. But instead of easing the situation, the staff looked even more irritated and confronted us again. Do you even understand what I'm saying? I'm telling you to leave. This restaurant is too upscale for you, the staff member insisted, his tone dismissive. But my daughter has calmed down now, I replied, trying to reason with him. She might cry again, right? And each time she does, you'll be disturbing everyone. This is supposed to be a fine dining restaurant. You're ruining the experience for others. We haven't even received half of our meal. We've already paid in advance, and we informed the restaurant about my daughter when we made the reservation. There shouldn't be a problem, I explained, feeling increasingly frustrated. So what? This is exactly why people like you with low standards shouldn't come here. If you keep this up, I'm going to call the manager, he retorted sharply. With that, the disgruntled staff member hurried off to the staff room. My mother and I were left speechless, stunned by his rudeness. How could someone be so disrespectful? Didn't he realize that his attitude was what was truly lowering the restaurant's standards? Despite this being a special celebration for my mother's 60th birthday, my mood was completely ruined. While I had caused a bit of a scene, I knew I couldn't be too confrontational about it. As my mother and I pondered our next move, the earlier staff member returned, this time with a man who appeared to be the manager. When I saw his face, I couldn't help but gasp. It was Daniel Thompson, my middle school classmate. Is that you, Rebecca? Daniel asked, seeming to recognize me. The staff member looked surprised and asked Daniel, do you know her? Feeling a wave of relief, I remembered Daniel as someone who was earnest and cheerful back in school, though quite reserved. He usually hung out in small groups separate from mine, but I remembered him because he once admitted he liked me. At that time, I was already dating someone else, so I turned him down. Despite that, we talked a few times. I hoped Daniel would address the staff's behavior now. Oh, Rebecca was my classmate, Daniel explained. Then he turned to me and asked, are you sure you should be here? Confused, I replied, what do you mean? I heard the rumor, you're a single mom now, right? People say single moms are usually broke. My restaurant is high-end. It'd be a problem if you said you couldn't pay later, Daniel said with a mocking smile, openly assessing me. His words hit me like a slap. I blinked in disbelief, remembering him as a kind person from our school days. It seemed he had changed a lot. How can you say that? I made a reservation and paid in advance, didn't I? I replied, trying to defend myself. You've always been headstrong, haven't you? Maybe that's why your husband got tired of you. You gotta know how to flatter sometimes, Daniel retorted. What does that have to do with anything? Why does it matter? I asked, feeling hurt and confused by his comments. Isn't that your compact car outside? He added sharply. What if it is? I replied with irritation, taken aback by Daniel's attitude. Daniel chuckled at my response. People who drive compact cars can leave. What? I was genuinely shocked by his statement. Didn't you notice when you parked? No one else here drives a compact car. Everyone's in Mercedes or something similar. Aren't you embarrassed to be so out of place? Daniel continued, looking at me with disdain. His words stung deeply. The Daniel I once knew, who had confessed his feelings for me, seemed to have vanished completely. He now sized us up with contempt. You look downright poor, not fitting for my restaurant. You understand the staff's position, so why don't you just leave? I was growing increasingly irritated by the way we were being treated, as if we were causing a scene and refusing to leave the restaurant. We had made a reservation and paid in advance, so we had every right to dine there. Judging us based on appearances was something I never expected from the Daniel I once knew. But after everything he said, there was no reason for my mom and me to stay. Even if the food was good, we didn't want to be in a place with disrespectful staff and a manager like Daniel. Daniel, you've changed. If this is how you're going to be, we're leaving, I stated firmly. Daniel seemed oddly satisfied with my decision. I'm living the dream. I'm definitely better off than you now. Don't think you can just casually call me by my first name. It's a shame you've changed, I replied sadly. Daniel smirked, clearly still holding on to old grudges. That's because you rejected me, making fun of me even though you're not that pretty. Well, at least I'm happier now. Isn't it refreshing? He chuckled and high-fived a staff member nearby, both sharing a laugh. It became clear to me that Daniel's terrible attitude stemmed from being rejected years ago. Say whatever you want. I'm certainly happier than someone who holds onto grudges for so long. I have a wonderful daughter and a kind mother. Let's go, Mom, I retorted confidently. My comeback seemed to amuse Daniel even more, as if he saw me as a sore loser. It frustrated me deeply, but I knew arguing with him now would be pointless. I never expected a former classmate to change so drastically. This day was meant to be a happy celebration. With these thoughts, I picked up my daughter and glanced at my mom. She, too, looked furious as she abruptly stood up. You've mocked my daughter enough. We don't want anything to do with a place like this. As you said, we're leaving. Right, everyone. My mom's declaration rang out loudly, echoing throughout the restaurant. Neither Daniel nor I knew who she was addressing. Then, to our surprise, all the diners who had been enjoying their meals began to stand up and get ready to leave. I was utterly stunned, trying to grasp what was happening. Wait, everyone, what's going on? I apologize for the disturbance. We'll handle these rude individuals right away. Just give us a moment, Daniel exclaimed, trying desperately to stop the diners from leaving. But he was met with cold stares from every direction. Daniel looked visibly flustered, clearly not understanding the sudden turn of events. Two elderly men stepped forward, shouting, "How dare you treat Mrs. Miller like that? We've been coming here for years, but we won't be back." Daniel was left speechless as the reality of the situation sank in. Shouted at, Daniel looked around the restaurant with a fearful expression. Following the lead of the two elderly men, all the other diners started scolding Daniel. They expressed their gratitude towards my mother, thanking her for something I couldn't quite understand. Holding my daughter, I watched in astonishment from the sidelines. The people scolding Daniel were all well-known celebrities, politicians, and clearly wealthy individuals. I was baffled as to why they held my mother in such high regard. Wait, what's going on here? What happened? I asked, trying to make sense of the sudden turn of events. Daniel's face turned pale as he desperately tried to calm everyone down. The staff member next to him looked equally panicked. I glanced over at my mom, silently seeking an explanation. That's when she revealed a shocking truth. All these people used to be regular customers of mine when I was a traditional sweets maker, she explained calmly. What? I exclaimed, completely taken aback. I knew my mom had made sweets, but I had no idea she catered to such prestigious clientele. One of the celebrities standing nearby chimed in, confirming my mom's statement. Mrs. Miller's sweets were the best in the country, he praised warmly. My mom listened to these words with a mixture of pride and embarrassment. I may not be a professional craftsman anymore, but thanks to them, I certainly honed my skills. I'm truly grateful. In that sense, the customer is truly a god, my mother stated with a profound sense of gratitude. Her words resonated deeply with me. Daniel looked visibly shocked, his posture tense and his breath held. As my mom approached him, she spoke calmly yet firmly. You too should cherish your customers. This restaurant means a lot to you, doesn't it? Daniel's response was defensive and defiant. Hey, cut it out. What's with this customer is God stuff? That's an outdated way of thinking these days. His outburst echoed through the restaurant, almost sounding like a cry of distress. But my mom remained composed, unfazed by his reaction. Do you really think that caring for customers is just a passing trend? She asked, her voice steady and unwavering. Hearing my mother's firm stance, Daniel struggled to find words. He appeared somewhat intimidated, yet he remained defiant and refused to accept her viewpoint. We are the ones providing the food. We're more important than the customers. This is absurd. I am important. If your daughter Rebecca hadn't rejected me. Daniel paused, then continued with an arrogant proposition. Apologize to me right now, and maybe I'll even consider making Rebecca my woman. It could be your way out of your struggling life. How does that sound? He looked at me with a smirk. His words disgusted me deeply, and I sighed heavily. I'm sorry, but honestly, I can't deal with you right now, I replied firmly, lowering my head in disappointment. Laughter rippled through the crowd around us, and Daniel's face flushed red with embarrassment. Despite thinking my response was clear, Daniel, with his misplaced confidence, seemed utterly unprepared for another rejection. Why not? I have money, you know. You don't want to be looked down upon, right? And isn't it embarrassing to be a single mother? Women like you probably can't remarry, so I'm offering to take you. Daniel persisted, his tone condescending. It's none of your business. Just because you have money doesn't guarantee happiness, my mom replied firmly, brushing him off. Daniel's face reddened even more in response to her rejection. I couldn't help but wonder if money was the reason behind Daniel's drastic change. They say money can corrupt, and witnessing it firsthand was eye-opening for me. How dare a single mother let you talk back to me? Daniel retorted, his frustration evident. At this point, I found Daniel's words increasingly irrelevant and pitiful compared to my mother's dignified response. Then, a booming voice interrupted from the back of the restaurant, startling all of us. We turned to see a middle-aged man entering the scene. Daniel's unease was palpable. "Daniel, what on earth are you doing?" the man demanded sternly. "Why is Dad here?" Daniel muttered, clearly caught off guard and uncomfortable with his father's sudden appearance. "I heard Mrs. Miller and her family were dining here, so I wanted to greet them." What's with all this commotion? The man who had appeared was Daniel's father. I hadn't seen him since middle school, but he seemed stern and dignified. Earlier, one of the staff had mentioned the boss, so this man must be the owner of the restaurant. "I appointed you as manager after hearing you lost your job, but the business is only declining." "Now I see why," Daniel's father said disapprovingly. "What, you saw?" Daniel stammered, clearly caught off guard. "Yes, I arrived earlier. I peeked in when I heard the commotion, and there you were insulting Mrs. Miller's family. With all the arrogant things you were saying, do you even realize how wonderful a person Mrs. Miller is?" Daniel's father interrogated him sternly, and Daniel was visibly sweating. "What? This old hag is supposed to be someone special?" Daniel retorted, his disrespectful tone clear. "Watch your mouth. Mrs. Miller helped fund the opening of this restaurant," Daniel's father reprimanded sharply. "Ha! This old lady has that kind of money?" Daniel muttered, surprised and somewhat incredulous. Of course, Mrs. Miller's husband owned a famous traditional candy store, and Mrs. Miller herself worked in the tough world of candy making, even as a woman. She's experienced so much more in life than you. I wish I could distill her wisdom and give you a taste, the owner said with evident frustration, then turned to address us directly. "I'm deeply sorry for the trouble my foolish son has caused. Come on, apologize." "Why should I? I'm the manager of this upscale restaurant. Didn't you trust my abilities enough to leave me in charge?" "This is my place. I make the rules," Daniel retorted stubbornly. "Enough of your arrogance. What have I done, entrusting someone like you with this responsibility? That's it. I'm so disappointed in you. You're never setting foot in this place again," the owner declared firmly. "What?" Daniel's mouth fell open in shock. He began to panic and tried to apologize to his father, but the owner's decision remained resolute. "You're apologizing to the wrong person. You should be apologizing to Mrs. Miller and her family," the owner concluded, leaving Daniel visibly shaken and regretful. "Please, I'm so sorry. I finally made it, and I don't want to lose it all over something like this," Daniel pleaded, his desperation evident. "And you're still going on about that, you unbelievable guy," the owner replied, shaking his head in disbelief. His shock was palpable, understandable given the situation. No parent wants to discover their child has behaved arrogantly and disrespectfully. If my daughter had acted similarly, I would have supported the same decision as the owners. We all looked at Daniel with cold stares. The owner then proceeded to explain how Daniel came to work at the upscale restaurant. It turned out Daniel had previously worked at a prestigious hotel but had fallen into gambling debts. Debt collectors caused disturbances at the hotel, leading to his dismissal. Feeling lost and desperate, Daniel had turned to his father, who worked at the upscale restaurant, and pleaded for a job. At that time, Daniel's father had been offered a promotion to become the CEO of the company, so he decided to pass the management of the upscale restaurant to his son while overseeing several other restaurants in the same chain. Initially, Daniel worked earnestly, and the owner trusted him. However, over time, sales at Daniel's restaurant began to decline significantly, leaving the owner perplexed about the cause. I've received complaints about Daniel's terrible attitude from the staff, but there was no concrete evidence, and I wanted to believe in him because he's my son. Today, the hope turned into certainty. "It's truly disappointing," the owner said, looking at Daniel with a heavy heart. Daniel appeared stunned, as if the realization had struck him like a bolt of lightning, and he started to apologize desperately. "Dad, please forgive me. I've been trying my best, haven't I? Rebecca, please speak to my dad for me," Daniel pleaded, turning to me for support. "What exactly should I say? We were classmates, remember? For old time's sake," I responded incredulously. "After how you acted. You're really something," You truly are the worst, I added, unable to hide my disappointment. Daniel's face fell further upon seeing my disdain. My mother and I were both shocked by his behavior and sighed in response. Following these events, Daniel lost his position as the manager of the upscale restaurant and was disowned by his father, leaving him homeless. It later came to light that Daniel had accrued new debts he had concealed. Despite earning a good salary, he had spent most of it on gambling and had mistreated his staff almost daily. Interestingly, he had shown favoritism towards one particular staff member who had often caused us trouble. This individual turned out to be Daniel's former college junior, whom Daniel had hired against better judgment. Due to the junior's problematic work attitude, he was also dismissed from the restaurant along with Daniel. Having lost everything, Daniel sank deeper into gambling to cope with his losses, struggling to repay his debts. It's clear he's not a good person. Despite Daniel's actions ruining my mother's 60th birthday celebration, we managed to salvage the day by gathering everyone from the restaurant and relocating to a hotel room for a party. Surprisingly, the hotel was owned by Daniel's father, who graciously allowed us to use the space as a gesture of apology. It turned into a memorable event where I made new friends and witnessed firsthand how beloved my mother is. Many of the guests had known her from her days as a traditional sweet maker, visiting her shop to buy sweets as gifts. Her enduring connections highlight her charm and kindness. Inspired by my mother's example, I aspire to become a role model for my daughter just as my mother has been for me. I'm a top banker, so I think I deserve to remarry a beautiful and capable woman. Being with someone like you just brings me bad luck. I'm divorcing you because you don't earn any money. What about our child? What will happen to her? I asked. Take care of Emily yourself. I'm having a new child with my girlfriend, he responded. My husband, who had left me and our daughter Emily, and even got his girlfriend pregnant, announced he was remarrying. Fed up with his behavior, I decided to get a divorce. After the divorce was finalized, I still had some important things to deal with. When I went to his workplace, I saw my husband and his girlfriend, both smirking as they walked towards me. Miss me so much you came all the way to my office. You're just a housewife with no money. Probably here to take some of the savings, right? He sneered. They looked in on me like I was trash, but I stayed calm and said, I came to withdraw $12 million. What? My husband was shocked when he found out I had won a big lottery prize and started begging for forgiveness. My name is Jennifer Brown. I'm 32 years old. Since I was a child, I dreamed of working in elderly care because I wanted to help others. After high school, I went to a vocational school for elder care and achieved my dream. Working as a caregiver was tough but fulfilling, especially when patients thanked me. One day, a coworker invited me to a social event where I met my future husband, Michael Brown. My first thought was that he was handsome. I wanted to talk to him, but he seemed quiet and maybe not into social gatherings. However, as we walked to the station together, we started chatting, and I discovered he was surprisingly talkative and enjoyable to be around. Michael was shy, not distant or uninterested. I found this contrast charming. We grew close quickly and eventually decided to get married. Later on, I found out through mutual friends that Michael had another girlfriend when we first met. Discovering Michael's double life was shocking, especially since we were already married by then. Despite this, I chose to believe that he truly loved and chose me for who I am. In the early days of our marriage, we had a lot of fun together. We enjoyed going to sports games and movies, soaking in the excitement of being newlyweds. One of our shared hobbies was buying lottery tickets. It all started when we stumbled upon a lottery booth during a sports event and bought our first sports lottery ticket out of curiosity. To our surprise, we won, probably beginner's luck. Although it wasn't a huge amount, it got us hooked, and we started buying small amounts regularly. We'd sometimes decide to buy a ticket if we felt lucky that day or if our horoscope seemed promising. This became one of the few hobbies we both enjoyed together. Around our 4th year of marriage, I started thinking about fertility treatments since we were struggling to have children. But then, unexpectedly, I became pregnant with our first child. Great job, Jennifer. We're finally going to be parents, Michael said, overwhelmed with joy and tears in his eyes when the pregnancy test showed positive. I'm so happy, but let's celebrate properly after we visit the OB/GYN. I'm nervous, but I have a feeling everything will be okay. Just a hunch, I replied. The next day, filled with nerves, we went to the OB/GYN. When the doctor confirmed the pregnancy on the ultrasound and said, "Congratulations, you're pregnant," I saw it with my own eyes. I was ecstatic. I immediately texted Michael from the waiting room. "I'm pregnant. Just entered the 5th week. Once we're past the risky period, we need to tell both our parents," I messaged. He read it immediately and replied, "Really? That's fantastic. I'm so happy. Thank you. Drive home safely, Jennifer." He usually took forever to reply, but this time he must have been really thrilled. I returned home, relishing in our joy. That night, we had so much to look forward to. "Michael, do you hope for a boy or a girl?" Tough call. I'd be happy with either, but if it's a girl, I might find it hard to let her go when she gets married. With a boy, we can play together a lot when he's little. Yeah, maybe, but if it's a girl, I'd love to talk about crushes and things like that with her. We enjoyed light-hearted conversations like this over dinner. Eventually, we found out the baby's gender. Pregnancy was tough, but with Michael's support, I had a happy and relatively smooth maternity experience. Time flew by, and I safely gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. We named her Emily. We talked about facing challenges together as a couple, but things changed after pregnancy and childbirth. I decided to quit my job as a caregiver, which had been physically demanding and involved night shifts, making it difficult to continue. This change drastically shifted Michael's attitude. When we were both working full-time, we shared household chores. But once I became a stay-at-home mom, he started saying things like, "You were home all day, right? Why didn't you clean? And you have plenty of time. Make more elaborate meals." He started criticizing me more often. As his behavior changed, our marriage slowly lost its spark. We still shared the same bed, but there was no closeness between us. "I'm only here because I have nowhere else to go. I don't want to be near you," he would say. I wanted to tell him to sleep somewhere else, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. We hardly had any real conversations anymore. When I tried to talk to him, he either wouldn't listen or would give indifferent responses. "Hey, I watched this drama yesterday," I'd say. "Aha," he'd reply. "Listen, Emily did this today," I'd add. "Sure," he'd respond. Our interactions dwindled down to brief exchanges like "aha" and "sure," with no depth or interest from his side. He rarely engaged in conversation unless he was upset. Once, when he was angry, he said, "What's with this meal? It's too bland. I can't eat this." "I thought less seasoning would be healthier," I explained. "Shut. You can't cook, you can't clean, useless at everything. Who else would have married you, huh?" he often said. Eventually, he even started treating Emily, who was only 3 years old, coldly. "Daddy, look, I drew this," she would say, showing him her drawing. "So what?" he would respond. No child could feel close to a father like that. Despite everything, I kept trying not to upset my husband and avoid arguments. Lately, though, I've been wondering, am I just a housekeeper disguised as a stay-at-home mom? At home, he treats us like that, but outside, he's a successful banker at a major bank. My friends even envy me, saying, "Wow, you have a banker husband. You two are a power couple, and he seems so devoted to you, Jennifer." But that's just his public image. Once at a friend's wedding, he declared in front of everyone, "Jennifer is amazing at cooking, cleaning, and laundry. She's a fantastic wife." My friends cheered, impressed. But the reality is different. He's indifferent towards Emily and me at home, behaving abusively. He's a completely different person outside, selfish and uncaring. He disappears for weekends without explanation, returns in the early hours, and never helps with household chores or childcare. During weekdays, I don't know when he finishes work or where he goes. He comes home late, and if I ask, he snaps. "It's none of your business where I am or what I'm doing. Just be thankful that someone as successful as me brings money home." He even said, "You're at home all day but can't even manage the household chores properly. Don't complain to someone like me, an elite. You've lost all your charm, not even looking like a woman anymore." His words shocked me, leaving me in tears the first time he said them. Despite everything, I tried numerous times to mend our relationship. However, with him rarely at home or in a bad mood early in the mornings, we grew increasingly distant, living like strangers under the same roof. People might think I should have divorced him sooner. Honestly, I'd often considered it myself, but could I, as a stay-at-home mom, raise Emily alone? Could I find a job if I started looking now? Would I be able to fulfill Emily's dreams like hobbies or college? Could I provide her with a comfortable life? These worries weighed heavily on my mind. One day, while I was alone at the supermarket doing our grocery shopping, I noticed a lottery booth tucked away in the corner with a sign that read, "Lucky Day." As I stood there at the lottery booth, memories flooded back of the times when Michael and I used to buy tickets together whenever we saw that Lucky Day sign. Those were such good times, now seeming like a distant past. It struck me how much Michael had changed. Filled with a sense of desperation, I decided to buy a ticket on my own for the first time in a long while. Might as well, I thought to myself. I briefly considered telling my husband about the ticket. Perhaps if we won, it could bring back those carefree conversations we used to have, dreaming about our future plans and adventures together. Holding on to that faint hope, I headed back home. But as usual, my husband didn't return until after 10 p.m. After putting Emily to bed, I was sitting on the living room sofa watching TV when I received a call from my husband's phone. "Hello, what time will you be home?" I answered. "Is this Michael's wife?" A strange woman's voice replied. A chill ran down my spine, sensing something was wrong. Who is this?" I asked. "I'm Lily, Michael's girlfriend. Your husband is sleeping right next to me," the woman said. "I've wanted to talk to you. I love Michael and he loves me too. Honestly, he told me you're like a maid to him and he's done with you. I think he's going to ask for a divorce soon, so he should start preparing." The shock and betrayal hit me hard as I listened to her words. I was furious with my cheating husband, though sadly, it wasn't a surprise. I had suspected his infidelity for a while. He always came home late on weekdays, was absent on weekends, and was secretive with his phone. The lack of intimacy between us only fueled my suspicions. So when Lily, his mistress, spoke so confidently and unapologetically, it disgusted me to hear how casually she admitted to their affair. "Is that so? I need to hear this from Michael first. I'll hang up for now. We can discuss this more later," I managed to say, trying to keep my composure. "No, talking to Michael won't change anything. In fact, I'm pregnant. It's Michael's child. Please start the divorce process soon, for the sake of our baby," she insisted. Her words stunned me. "Pregnant? You must be lying." "It's true. Michael has promised to support me and the baby. As a successful banker, he plans to marry me and raise our child together. It's time for a wife swap. Can you send Michael's belongings over soon?" Her audacity stunned me. I had our precious daughter at home, and the thought of Michael flaunting himself as a successful banker sickened me. Too exhausted to argue or shout, I calmly asked, "All right, can you give me your address?" "Wow, you're surprisingly cooperative," she remarked. "The address is—" I noted it down and ended the call. Around midnight, Michael finally returned home. I confronted him about the call from his mistress, and he didn't hesitate to confess to the affair. "Yeah," she spilled everything. "I'm an elite banker, and I'm planning to marry Lily, who's beautiful and capable. I thought having someone like you, a gloomy stay-at-home mom, might be useful, but being with you just brings me bad luck. I'm divorcing you, a useless, unemployed woman." His words were like daggers piercing my heart. Bad luck? Useless? Just a stay-at-home mom. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But what about Emily, our daughter?" I asked, trying to stay strong. "Michael, what about Emily?" "You take care of Emily. I have a new child on the way with Lily. I'll pay alimony, of course. As a high earner, it's no problem for me, unlike you," he replied coldly. His complete lack of remorse and disregard for our daughter made me question if he had any humanity left. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I couldn't feel anything for a man like him anymore. I knew I had to protect Emily on my own. Michael, unprompted, began talking about Lily. "Apparently, she's a 24-year-old new employee, popular and beautiful. I'm leaving you for a young and cute girl like her to start a new life," he boasted, his eyes gleaming with pride. I couldn't even muster tears after being insulted and betrayed by both my husband and his mistress. I simply wished them nothing but misery. That day, Michael packed a few things and left, saying, "I'll send the divorce papers once everything's sorted." He never returned home after that, likely staying with Lily. I started preparing for the divorce process. I consulted a lawyer about alimony arrangements before officially filing, as I knew it was wise to be prepared. Following Lily's address, I sent Michael's belongings to her place and began packing to move back to my parents' house with Emily. While cleaning up, I found more of Michael's things and reached out to him. "I found more of your stuff while cleaning," I texted. "My mistake. I'll come pick it up tomorrow." was his casual reply. I handed over the divorce papers and Michael's belongings, feeling a mix of disbelief and disgust as I faced them both at my doorstep. Lily's words cut deep, her disregard for my feelings and the situation evident. Nice to meet you, ex-wife. I'm feeling sick from the pregnancy. Did you sign the divorce papers? Can you hurry up and finish the divorce? She said coldly. She was undeniably beautiful and much younger than me. Seeing Michael support her, pregnant with his child, only intensified my discomfort. All I wanted was for them to leave as soon as possible. Here are the divorce papers and your belongings, I said tersely, handing them over. I handed over the signed divorce papers, and Michael snatched them, hastily scrawled his signature, and tossed them back at me. There you go. Make sure to file them today, he said dismissively. Sure, I replied, trying to keep my composure. With that, they left, and I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing I had another important matter to attend to once the divorce was finalized. I received the alimony in a lump sum, which wasn't surprising given Michael's constant boasting about being an elite banker. A week later, I found myself at the bank where my ex-husband worked, handling an important task. Ignoring Michael, I focused on what I needed to do, but he couldn't resist taunting me. Miss me, you really can't let go, can you? He sneered, approaching with a smirk. Then Lily emerged from the back. Oh, look who it is. The ex-wife. What are you here for, scraping together savings? I was tired of their sarcasm. No, I'm here to collect something. What, $12 million? I declared, relishing the shock on their faces. That's right, the lottery ticket I bought on a whim at the supermarket turned out to be a jackpot winner. When Michael and I used to buy tickets together, it was a fun hobby. We checked the results eagerly. But this time, since I bought it alone, I didn't expect much and casually checked online. Then I saw the message, congratulations on your win. At first, I thought it was a small prize, but as I scrolled down, I couldn't believe my eyes. $12 million. I counted the digits in disbelief. $12 million. I was stunned, staring at the screen in shock. That day, I was so overwhelmed that I could barely manage any housework or childcare. The next day, I opened my laptop to double-check, and yes, it was still $12 million. I read up on what to do after winning, still feeling like I was floating on air. It all seemed surreal. I even consulted a lawyer to understand if a lottery win before finalizing the divorce would be divided as assets. They assured me that since the divorce was due to Michael's actions and our marriage had already broken down, the winnings wouldn't be subject to division. When I explained this to both of them, they were in disbelief. What? Why didn't you tell us? That should be split between us, right? It's not fair if you get all the money. Michael protested. That's not possible. You cheated, got your mistress pregnant, and now you expect to claim my lottery winnings. It doesn't work that way. I've already confirmed it with a lawyer, I responded firmly. No, that's a lie, Michael shouted, his voice filled with anger. How the hell did you win that much? You never had this kind of luck when you were with me. It's not fair that you get to keep it all. Maybe being with a gloomy woman like me wasn't your problem after all. Maybe you were the one bringing down the luck, I shot back. Lily, clearly irritated, interjected, What's wrong with this woman, Michael? Let's go. It doesn't matter how much money she has. Come on, let's leave. But to my surprise, Michael didn't move. Instead, he said something completely unexpected. Jennifer, I'm sorry. Let's get back together. I was wrong to belittle you and have an affair. Let's start over. What? What are you saying? You promised to support me and the baby. You said you loved me, and now you want to go back to your ex-wife. Lily exclaimed, her voice filled with hurt and disbelief. But with $12 million, we could quit our jobs, buy a house, get a nice car, and travel the world. It would be amazing, Michael pleaded, his eyes fixed on the money. His words disgusted me. You truly are the worst. Living with someone like you all these years makes me sick. I'm sorry for everything. I'll treat you better from now on, I promise. Please think about it, he said, grasping my arm tightly. I was so furious that I snapped. Don't touch me. Startled by my outburst, Michael recoiled. Just then, someone from the back heard the commotion and stepped forward. What's happening here, Michael? It was the branch manager. Michael and Lily looked flustered by the unexpected interruption. It's nothing, really, Michael stammered, clearly uncomfortable under the manager's scrutiny. I heard everything from the staff. Are you sure there's nothing going on? The branch manager questioned, his tone serious. Michael began to explain, but the manager interrupted sharply. I'll discuss your personal matters with Lily later, he said firmly. My ex-husband and Lily paled visibly. An affair, a pregnant mistress, and causing a scene in the bank. It was a messy situation. Tough luck, I thought. Then the branch manager turned to me. Ma'am, I apologize deeply for the discomfort this has caused you, he said sincerely. Michael and Lily followed suit, offering their apologies. It seemed obligatory, especially after the manager had expressed regret. Oh, it's fine, I managed to reply, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events. You're here to withdraw your big lottery win, right? Let me assist you, the branch manager offered graciously. With his help, I withdrew my winnings and overnight became a millionaire. Days later, my ex-husband bombarded me with calls. Initially, I ignored them, but eventually I reluctantly answered. Hello? Jennifer, thank God you picked up, he said urgently. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Since that day, my boss has been furious. He says someone like me harms the bank's reputation. Isn't that awful, despite all my hard work? He whined over the phone. I sighed heavily, understanding the gravity of the situation. Maybe your boss has a point. Perhaps he's concerned that your actions could jeopardize the bank's integrity in the long run, I replied calmly. My response seemed to strike a nerve. So my hard work was all for nothing, huh? Well, whatever. Your opinion on my job doesn't matter to me anymore, he retorted before I hung up. It felt satisfying to finally express my feelings. Later, through an acquaintance, I learned that my ex-husband had been demoted and transferred to a distant branch as punishment for the turmoil he caused due to his affair. Additionally, Lily, witnessing my ex-husband's attempt to reconcile with me after learning about my lottery win, confronted him in a fury. She said to him, Actually, the baby isn't yours. Maybe I had other potential husbands, you know? I thought you were a high-flying banker, but I don't need a demoted, unstable one. I'll find someone better. Goodbye. With that, she left the bank and disappeared. Lily had entertained thoughts of remarrying my ex, believing he was an elite banker. However, upon realizing he was just an average employee with uncertain prospects, she changed her mind. It was a tale scarier than horror itself. My ex-husband was abandoned by his mistress, rejected by his wife and child, and his job was now on the line. It was a fitting consequence for his actions. With my lottery winnings, I moved into a condo with my daughter. While the money could have allowed me to stop working, I opted to stay financially responsible and soon return to my nursing career. It was important to me to save for my daughter's future and avoid unnecessary spending. However, I also wanted us to enjoy some luxury, so I planned a trip to Hawaii with my daughter and parents. Staying at a beautiful hotel and being able to treat my parents while creating lasting memories with my daughter was truly special. Looking forward, I'm eager to explore more places with my daughter, discover new interests together, and find hobbies we both enjoy. I'm excited about this new phase of life filled with happiness and adventures alongside my wonderful daughter.